a powerful event shook the world 20 years ago. That day became the start of dungeon history, marking the rise of a new era. Kyo clutches a photo of his sister Natsu, remembering her smile. Though he reached S-class, regret still lingers in his heart. Kyo stands before the glowing red portal as it pulses with power. He steps through without hesitation, tightening his wristband and activates his system. His status displays that he is a level 50 assassin, while wondering why he still clings to something long gone. Soon after, Kyo joins his team already waiting near the dungeon entrance. As they head deeper, eerie growls echo through the green-lit corridors. Suddenly, a B-class shadow wolf emerges from the dark. Their captain calls out to Kyo and casually leaves him to deal with the wolf alone. Kyo follows his leader's command, leaping without hesitation. The wolf charges with brute force, shaking the ground on impact but suddenly senses something. Kyo swiftly dodges and gauges the beast's overwhelming strength. He then launches upward to strike while it's left exposed. He crashes down onto the wolf with a crimson strike and lands a direct hit, but it looks unfazed and looks at him with a violent stare. In a flash, it slashes Kyo midair with a flurry of strikes. The force sends him flying while the beast roars and prepares to charge again. The wolf is suddenly sliced cleanly by their captain, asking why Kyo is struggling with something so weak in a condescending tone as he looks shaken. The captain taunts him and says he's too weak for S-class and should retire, rendering Kyo speechless. The girl notes that Kyo is not doing so bad for someone who is the weakest assassin. He lowers his head in shame, clutching his injured hand as he admits he's weak. Research shows the assassin class isn't fit for combat. Even if he's mocked and lacks power, he still clings to this S-class party. Kyo fought to see his sister smile again. To save her, he pushed on as an adventurer, but he couldn't find a cure in time. Her illness took her life. Even now, he can't change how he lives. As he fights against monsters, he notes that the limits of an assassin were reached and it was proved the weakest class, making it clear that assassins aren't built for combat. Meanwhile, their captain sighs and says they're done for the day. The rest casually agree and prepare to head back. The party's magician heals the rest of the party, while the captain suggests discussing the rewards. He smirks and asks if Kyo's fine without getting any reward again. He hesitates but agrees. They laugh as they tell him to be grateful they're still keeping him around. Kyo is already used to such treatment, but he continues working as an adventurer because in dungeons, unknown possibilities always exist. The rest of the party prepares to return already, until Kyo notices the ground shaking. A strange noise echoes from the gate until a towering monster steps out with radiating power. Kyo freezes in shock as the enemy appears, revealing that it's an S-class mechanical dragon called Culkin. Their captain calls them a fitting challenge as Culkin hovers above them. Kyo senses something is off as he grips his weapon, noting that the monster is unlike any he's faced before. Their captain charges in and calls for backup, until a massive beam crashes down and breaks his sword in half. The party panics and notes that their enemy is far too strong. Kyo hesitates and wonders if they should run. The dragon grins with its overwhelming power, until Kyo is suddenly slammed into the ground. Stunned, he looks up in disbelief after his captain kicked him away. He smirks and calls out to Kyo with a menacing grin. He stands frozen as the dragon opens its jaws. With a snap, it lunges at him. Meanwhile, the others run away without concern, while their captain admits they were planning to ditch him after this job anyway. To them, he's just useless as Kyo's decapitated body displays. His body suddenly turns into stone, revealing that he used a clone at the last second to escape. Kyo realizes that his party used him as bait to flee, but he knows he must escape too since he is alone and outmatched. Meanwhile, Culkin speaks, and he is pleased that the plan is going smoothly. The dragon declares its intent to cross the gate and destroy humanity, stomping its massive feet on the ground as dark energy surges. It prepares to move with the gates now open. Kyo panics as it should be impossible for monsters to pass through, but Culkin grins and claims it's possible for him. Kyo looks shocked in terror for an unprecedented event if the monster escapes. He clenches his fist as he admits that he can't run away. Kyo makes his choice as he takes out his dagger to fight, even if he saves just one person. Culkin charges its power as he mocks him for someone who was used as bait. The dragon rears back, asking what he could possibly do. Multiple after images of Kyo appear behind the monster, but it unleashes a devastating blast to defeat his clones. Kyo's real body is still midair as he prepares to strike the monster with his dagger. He throws his weapon with immense force and determination, until the dragon counters him with a strike using its tail. Kyo is knocked back from the impact, crashing him hard into the wall. He refuses to give up and thinks of a way to win against the monster. The dragon uses its vision to lock his target using heat detection, firing another blast without hesitation. Kyo is stunned in disbelief, while a massive explosion sends him and his clones flying from the impact. His real body is finally exposed as he suspects that the monster used heat to detect him. He narrows his eyes, spotting a glowing core which he suspects is the monster's weakness. With a quick dash, he prepares to gamble on it. He splits in three using his clones, until the dragon is shocked by his sudden move. Kyo charges forward without hesitation, while he bets his life on his strike. Culkin reaches with its sharp claws, striking Kyo, but he is locked in on the monster's glowing core. With one final move, he unleashes Fam's slash. His body soars upward in a blinding burst. The core is struck dead as an explosion erupts from the impact, while the dragon screams in shock as the blast tears through. Exhausted, Kyo smiles as he makes the right call, but his body's at its limit as well. For someone with the weakest job, maybe he just wanted to look cool. The dragon calls the fight magnificent. Admitting this is the first time it's been pushed this far, and its plan must wait. With a glow, it retreats and vows to return. Kyo wonders if he is able to help the world at the very least, until a reward appears that he's credited for the solo defeat of Culkin and the quest bonus is applied. His disorientation displays, while the screen states there are no quests for him to accomplish, but he remains confused. To someone dying, the message no longer matters. Suddenly, an alarm blares as he wakes up in a sunlit room while feeling stunned. He rushes to the mirror, shocked that he's alive and even looks younger. He wonders why he returned and questions if it is the dragon's doing or that strange screen that appeared before he lost consciousness. Just then, his phone dings and he checks it cautiously. He checks his phone and sees a cheerful message from his sister, immediately remembering her soft smile and softly utters her name. A tear falls as he realizes she's alive. He wipes his tears away and vows that he won't repeat his past mistakes. With unwavering resolve in his eyes, he swears he will save Natsu. He bursts into the hospital room, seeing Natsu, who looks up in surprise as he calls her name. He pulls her into a hug, overwhelmed that she's real. She teases him with a hint of confusion. While a news report highlights a rising disease with no cure yet and researchers race to find a civilian antibody, silently Kyo notes that there is no drug that can cure her illness, while the right treatment will only exist in the future and it won't be cheap. This prompts him to decide to become an adventurer, so he prepares to act immediately knowing time is tight. Without delay, he heads out to register. A new quest suddenly appears with simple objectives such as running, pull-ups, and greeting people. He stares in confusion as he recognizes the screen from the moment before his death, realizing it's tied to his reward from defeating Culkin. Kyo instantly decides to try completing it. He starts with the greetings to an old man who reacts with visible shock. The conversation goes smoothly, but he is visibly embarrassed as he walks away since it doesn't count unless he speaks loudly. The screen shows he's only completed 2 greetings. He pushes through the rest of the quest as he finishes the hill dashes and completes the pull-ups right after soon after. After completing his final greeting, the system notifies that he has cleared the quest, and a reward is issued immediately. He's surprised to see a massive bonus as he reaches level 3 already. It shocks him since reaching that level normally takes 3 months, prompting him to realize something significant. Kyo can now aim for the strongest path, while a candy bar is taken out. An old lady rewards him with it for his greetings. Later, he heads to the registration desk to become an adventurer. The receptionist hands over his adventurer bracelet and confirms his status as an 18-year-old F-class. Seeing the result, he confirms that he's really level 3. He's told he can choose his class using the bracelet, knowing that every class has its own set of skills. Kyo confidently chooses classless, prompting the bystanders to laugh at his decision and mock the idea of clearing dungeons without a class. But he stays firm and believes that Path will one day be recognized as the strongest. Kyo ignores the warning and finalizes his class choice without hesitation. At a shop, he picks out a sword named Demon's Bite as he feels confident in his strength. Despite the price, he buys it knowing it's a necessary investment as he heads out to continue his journey. Kyo arrives at the beginner's dungeon and he is prepared to enter. While others hesitate at the gate, he strides forward without fear. The onlookers watch in awe as he disappears into the portal. Inside, he takes a moment and feels the familiarity of the place. He recalls starting from here once before, charging straight into battle against a sticky F-class slime. His body feels light even without any skills, easily defeating a sword-wielding skeleton, which once took all his effort now feels effortless. Kyo finds his dungeon hunting a success, while he gathers colorful stones from the ground. These magic stones are powerful beyond measure and key to energy production where adventurers risk their lives inside dungeons just to obtain them. Suddenly, he senses danger and tightens his focus. An E-class rare monster named Oros suddenly appears and is ready to fight him. Recognizing the threat, he charges in without hesitation. Their weapons clash, while the monster blocks his attack with its shield. Oros launches a glowing strike with overwhelming force, while he follows up with Radiant Sword Slash, then unleashes Soaring Sky Sword Dance. Despite the barrage, Kyo counters each move with sharp and clean swings. Amid the chaos, his calm grows and reveals the true potential of the classless path in 15 years from now. He slashes the monster with a mastery skill and compares the power against other classes. He clashes with Oro's midair and instantly learns a new skill called Radiant Sword Slash. His rapid growth as a classless adventurer unlocks another move called Indomitable Sword Slash, giving him the ability to copy Oro's skill instantly since he has a high mastery skill. Oro's is stunned in disbelief as Kyo believes that he is lucky this time around. He ends the fight with a final slash, scattering the Oro's remains with a rare drop of D-class magic stone. He returns early to the guild, which surprises the receptionist with his fast completion. She assumes that he had a hard time as a classless adventurer, until he opens his bag and reveals a haul of valuable stones, which shocks the receptionist. A man suddenly grabs Kyo's arm and questions him for defeating a rare monster despite his classless status, calling it cheating as he lashes out. Kyo quickly restrains and humiliates the arrogant adventurer, prompting him to walk away and question if he's truly classless. Meanwhile, Kyo's reward gets transferred without issue. Suddenly, an emergency quest has been triggered, catching him completely off guard. He looks down at the system in confusion, and is surprised that the quest is for him to sing passionately in front of the station for 5 minutes. He arrives at the plaza, until the people nearby react with surprise as he begins his quest. Kyo belts out a dramatic song, blushing furiously from embarrassment. He bows respectfully to the small crowd and thanks them for listening. The system announces the quest is complete. Then he receives his reward, which is the Ring Appraisal. His excitement displays after receiving the ring at such a timing, noting that mastery is an indicator of how good a weapon's affinity is. His weapon stats and skills display, and he finds out that his mastery is level 8. Kyo is proud that his plan worked since his mastery would still be low if he was not classless. Stepping into a dungeon, he charges forward with Soaring Sky Sword Dance. He tears through an F-rank sticky slime. Noting how natural his move feels now, he confidently swings his sword against the skeletons, until he decides it's time to call it a day. Checking his status, he sees he's reached level 4. His stats show a boost across the board, with his greatsword mastery hitting level 10. Kyo receives 4 level up bonus points, assigning all the bonus points to luck. The stat jumps to 122, knowing luck boosts mastery growth. Kneeling by a pile of skill stones, he can't wait to learn new skills again. Satisfied with the results, he prepares to return to the guild. At the counter, an adventurer, who is scouting from a serpent clan, tries to get information from the receptionist on where he can find a strong adventurer. She looks obviously nervous, until she points to Kyo, who just arrived at the guild. The scout wraps an arm around Kyo, explaining they're scouting skilled adventurers. Kyo realizes that they need him, until the scout notices his bag, which is filled with magic stones. The scout looks impressed, but Kyo sets that expectation that he is just a newbie, but the scout says being a newbie doesn't matter and what counts is talent. He introduces himself and shares that they are aiming to conquer the S-rank dungeon of Abyss, which surprises Kyo, knowing no one has ever cleared it. Though interested, he politely declines the offer. The scout playfully pulls him in and asks what his job is. Kyo confidently reveals that he's classless, prompting the scout to burst out laughing and calling him indecisive. He loses interest and walks off, mocking him on the way out. The receptionist apologizes for the rudeness, but Kyo doesn't mind. Instead, he opens his bag with a pile of glowing magic stones, which shocks the receptionist. Meanwhile, a girl watches him from afar as the receptionist clarifies if he is really classless, until the girl approaches and greets him softly. He wonders if he's interrupting, but she smiles and says he's not. He quietly notes how beautiful she is as he observes her. Alice, an adventurer from the Carnelian Rage clan, admits she overheard him clearing a dungeon, and he confirms again that his job is classless. She leans in with a curious look, calling him interesting, and asks if being classless has secret perks. Kyo simply replies that it's a trade secret. Amused, she compliments his smarts and says she likes him. Finally, she introduces herself and reveals she's an S-class adventurer. Kyo asks Alice what she wants until she casually responds it's the same as the guy before. Her eyes lock onto him as she reveals they also aim for the Abyss and want him as a comrade. His sharp gaze displays and asks if they still want him despite being classless. She smiles and says he's welcome as long as he's strong. Deep down, he decides to keep his mastery a secret and feels unsure of what to do next. They shake hands firmly as he declares he'll do whatever it takes to achieve his goals. However, she admits she can't add an F-class like him to the clan just yet, so she offers a workaround, which is to give him an invitation to a D-rank dungeon called Frozen Shadow. It is a privilege granted to S-class adventurers, which allows even lower-ranked ones to participate in a higher-ranked dungeon. At the counter, the receptionist suddenly informs Kyo that she is going to transfer his reward already, while he checks his phone for his balance. Alice is shocked to see his reward from the beginner dungeon, while he asks her not to look at his phone. As they walk away, she suddenly says she wants parfait, but he brushes her off. He arrives at the entrance of the D-rank dungeon, stepping through the portal where he's instantly met by freezing winds and blinding snow. The blizzard pushes against him as he braces through the harsh cold. Visibility drops with every step, and he mutters that this was a terrible time to come. Suddenly, a growl echoes through the snow, and he turns with alertness. A towering figure emerges through the snow, revealing itself as a feral beast called White Silence. Kyo draws his sword calmly and notes that something of that level shouldn't appear casually. The furious beast charges forward, until the system initiates a new quest where he needs to hold his breath for 60 seconds, prompting him to react in surprise after seeing another ridiculous quest. The monster swings its claws, but he dodges it as he can see its movement clearer after reaching level 4. Slashing back with force, he lands a blow, but it's not deep enough. Kyo finally starts the quest, while the time ticks down as he focuses. The beast lunges again, but he blocks the strike and thinks the seconds are dragging. Finally, the timer completes and the quest is marked successful. A bright glow surrounds Kyo as he levels up to 5. With a burst of speed, he counters using a powerful sword dance, following up with Radiant Sword Slash which cuts through the beast. A final blow ends the battle with the beast, while the system notifies him of a new skill called Ice Barrier that can protect him from the cold. He sighs in relief and admits the quest was brutal. As the snow falls harder, he wonders if the dungeon is sinking with his pace. Realizing the danger, he prepares to move before being buried. Meanwhile, Kyo finds himself hunting a frost hopper. He strikes a powerful slash, but the beast manages to dodge swiftly. His frustration displays, but he decides to let go of the hopper. He then opens his bag filled with magic stones, satisfied with the amount of D-rank stones that he collected. Suddenly, he thanks Alice since the dungeon as a good experience point, reflecting as well on how beautiful she is. He instantly shakes his head to remind himself not to get distracted. Looking ahead, he decides to go deeper into the dungeon, until he hears a scream echoing across the snowfield. He spots a knight being thrown violently, while another body lies nearby as a growl rings out. Nami, a healer, trembles in fear as a hopper's boss appears. She steels herself and grips her staff with shaking hands. Before the monster can strike, Kyo arrives and takes her away from danger. The monster's frustration displays, while Kyo quickly notes it's a rare D-rank monster. He suddenly takes out a handkerchief, placing it on the ground for her to sit on as he declares to help her. His words and actions stun her as her face flushes from surprise. Nearby survivors thank him and ask what his class is, to which Kyo simply replies that he's classless. Their shock displays, while Kyo is relieved that he got in time to save them. The hopper's boss suddenly drives back with a strike. It slams its fists down, shaking the icy ground. Kyo manages to dodge the strike, but the hopper's boss charges forward again. The beast takes out its glowing fangs, piercing Kyo, but it misses its target. He notes that the rare monster proves more dangerous than expected. The monster takes a powerful leap. While Kyo is relieved he boosted his attack power beforehand. Charging forward, he declares he'll cut it down with his skills. His blade slashes through the beast's defense, while the impact stuns the beast as the strike closes in. Kyo stands over its fading body while Nami watches in awe. The others approach in shock after a classless fighter used sword skills, but Kyo silently says he had no reason to hide it. Turning to Nami, he asks if she can stand. Still flustered, she stares at him in surprise. Kyo assumes that she is a healer and asks her to help the injured. She cries in embarrassment until she begins healing the injured warriors while Kyo rests nearby. The knight admits he never expected help from a classless and a healer, while Kyo observes quietly and thinks how valuable healers are in moments like this. Suddenly, she's scolded for healing too slowly. The other adventurer berates her for slacking after he put her in the party as a healer. She heals him quietly, while Kyo notes that they overlook her worth. The adventurer threatens to kick her out if she doesn't improve, prompting her to be on the verge of tears as she begs for leniency. To her shock, Kyo tells the adventurer to kick her out. Nami is rendered speechless until Kyo steps forward and tells her not to waste her true potential. She looks up with her eyes wide with hope. Her face lights up thinking he's proposing to her, but he firmly replies that she's wrong. He extends his arm and promises to make her the strongest adventurer. She is stunned by his presence, noting that Kyo somehow feels different from the others. She grabs his hand while declaring that she believes him. Their hands clasp tightly as Nami's face sharpens, while Kyo tells her to leave it on him. He casually waves goodbye since he still has errands to run, leaving her confused. Later at the guild, the receptionist is shocked to see a magic stone from the frozen shadow. She confirms it's more than enough to promote him to E-class, making Kyo eligible to enter a D-rank dungeon without needing an invitation. The receptionist admits she's never heard of a classless person getting promoted before, noting how E-class adventurers gain access to D-rank dungeons and shed their newbie status. Kyo checks his reward on his phone and notes that the pace feels right. He then decides to buy a gift for Natsu, heading out with a box of cupcakes. Kyo knocks on the hospital door and enters, while Natsu lies asleep on the bed. He pauses as he sees her resting, then gently strokes her head. In his thoughts, he swears not to let her die again. He reflects on his recent encounter and thinks he was lucky to meet Nami early on, noting that her power will be key to Natsu's treatment. Opening the fridge, he tries to store the cupcakes but finds there isn't enough space, so he decides to eat half himself, but the nurse walks in and believes the cupcakes are just for him. That night outside the hospital, Kyo makes an unexpected phone call, informing that he has already finished his task. It is revealed that he is talking to Alice, who looks impressed while he thanks him for making him stronger. Alice lies on her bed and notes that he exceeded her expectations, until she asks if he wants information on other dungeons, but he declines. Instead, he mentions there's someone he wants to train and believes she can help. He describes Nami as a promising healer and wants her teamed with the necromancer. Alice teases him and calls his method strange, but Kyo promises that it will be interesting. He explains that the synergy of a necromancer and healer can lead to exponential growth. She agrees to help but reminds him he now owes her a favor, triggering a memory for Kyo. While he leaves the situation to Alice, she accepts and says she'll handle it, while she lies back with a smirk and calls him an interesting fellow. Back at the guild, the receptionist cheerfully announces his E-class promotion. He responds coolly with a brief thanks, but she reminds him how hard it is to reach E-class and how many give up before getting there without knowing that he was an XS-class adventurer. People suddenly react with alarm as Kyo walks off. They see shackled men who happen to be the Revenant's D-class adventurers who've committed crimes. The receptionist admits that it is hard to choose a leader for them, giving her a hard time. Suddenly, Kyo volunteers to take the leadership role. She's shocked by his offer and reminds him how dangerous the task is, but it is fine for him, knowing this job will earn him money, and more importantly, he knows how to handle the Revenants. She is grateful for his help and hands over the official documents, prompting Kyo to sign without hesitation. A sharp clack echoes as the control choker locks onto a prisoner's neck. The guard explains that a button can trigger electric shocks through those collars. Kyo receives the silver ring glowing ominously in his palm, noting that even criminals with talent can still be adventurers. He slides the band onto his wrist and prepares himself to act if anyone gets out of line. One of the prisoners smirks and asks if they still have human rights, but the guard barks at him to shut up. They ask for Kyo's name and mock him casually behind him. He answers coldly and says this will be their final conversation. Then the last of their restraints fall with a clatter. They enter the blazing dungeon portal as one of them pumps himself up. Flames roar as they step into the Inferno Deeps, which is an active D-rank dungeon. Complaining about the hard task, the group trudges forward, but one of them sees it differently, as the job might actually be an opportunity. Their attention shifts as Kyo steps forward with calm confidence. The prisoners grin ominously as if something's already planned, while Kyo instinctively grabs the control ring, but it doesn't activate to his shock. With a smirk, one of the prisoners rips off his collar, dropping to the ground in pieces. Kyo narrows his eyes, while one of the prisoners laughs and declares he holds no grudge but plans to kill him anyway. Flames swirl around the convict as he lunges forward with murderous intent. Kyo's system activates and issues an emergency quest, which is to defeat all his enemies, making him realize that the system is matching with the timing of his situation. The battlefield erupts in chaos as a monster floods the scene. A monstrous D-rank fire slither bursts through the flames with sharp teeth. The monster charges forward while Kyo remains alert, seeing that it is heading towards the prisoner. He throws an uppercut at the monster, mocking its weak presence. The prisoners declare their D-class power puts them near C-class, while Kyo learns that the prisoner is a fighter class, making him realize that he can win the battle. A massive blast erupts as the prisoner charges his energy, leaping forward to strike his enemy. Kyo ducks as the ground shatters behind him from the impact. Chunks of stone fly through the air as the explosion grows. Kyo looks up with surprise at the overwhelming force. In the distance, the fat prisoner picks something up from the ground, revealing that it is a locked case with dangerous weapons inside. He grips a spiked gauntlet, sliding it onto his arm. With a confident pose, he declares they're unbeatable. Kyo focuses and says the truth will be exposed if the magic stone is used, noting that a fighter class is not compatible with equipment. The prisoner's attack lands hard and shakes the ground beneath them. Kyo explains that the fighter class specializes in overwhelming offense, along with extraordinary defensive capabilities. The enemy smirks while Kyo thinks carefully, until he takes out his weapon and acknowledges their limitation. He knows that a fighter class has a debuff in proficiency and believes that there is still a chance to win. With focus, he prepares to act and chooses the skinny prisoner as his first target. Kyo leaps into action to meet his strike. However, the skinny prisoner laughs maniacally until Kyo realizes something is up. The fat prisoner tackles him from behind, causing him to crash to the ground. Kyo reflects that fighting 3 high rankers is difficult, but he can feel the difference in proficiency. He grips his weapon tighter and pushes through, while the leader narrows his eyes and recognizes Kyo's strength. He shouts for everyone not to hold back, ordering them to go all out and activate a skill. All 3 activate physical enhancement as their bodies glow. Kyo suddenly receives a new skill notification, while his enemy mocks him for being classless. However, Kyo charges forward without hesitation. His blade slashes across his enemy, until the skill notification confirms he's acquired physical enhancement 2. Kyo slashes his enemy with his flaming sword, landing a solid strike. Kyo declares that one is finally down, noting that his proficiency activated just in time. The fat prisoner charges forward and yells in rage, but Kyo counters with a soaring sky dance. The fat guy is shocked to see a monster's technique, while Kyo raises his weapon and maintains his focus. The fat guy crashes into a massive rock. His face is filled with confusion. Kyo leaps high into the air, readying his blade. He channels energy for a powerful strike, finishing his second opponent. He marvels at the powerful leap he just made. The last enemy realizes how versatile physical enhancement is, prompting him to back away in fear with confusion why someone so strong is with them. Panicked, he shouts that this wasn't part of the deal. Kyo narrows his eyes, until someone suddenly grabs his feet. Kyo looks alarmed, while the fat guy below shouts his vow to escape into the free world. The enemy yells for his ally to hold tight as he launches him forward. Kyo is slammed into the ground after a brutal tackle, sending him flying. The leader grins confidently while Kyo realizes how much force that blow had. He starts gasping for air, until a memory of Natsu in a hospital flashes in his mind. Something sparks inside him, catching the enemy off guard. Kyo plants his sword into the ground and refuses to fall, remembering his vow to save his sister this time. He apologizes silently and draws power once again. Physical enhancement activates as his energy surges. With fierce determination, he locks eyes forward as promises not to give up. He dashes in with full force and strikes down his enemies, knocking them down instantly. The quest is completed and a reward is granted, until a key materializes in Kyo's palm. A prompt asks if he wants to use it. He declines for now until a volcano erupts violently. Kyo walks through the portal while carrying the unconscious prisoners on his back. Outside, the guards rush forward and are stunned by what they see, but Kyo suddenly reaches his limit and slowly drops. Security rushes to the scene and calls for medical support. Meanwhile, someone talks on the phone and questions what went wrong, learning that an interference ruined the plan. The superior demands to know who caused it, while the answer is sent through a phone and reveals Kyo's profile. A shocked reaction follows, but the informant confirms that the information is legitimate. Arata, the founder of the Serpent Clan, finds Kyo interesting. He utters a threat while looking at Kyo's profile, declaring that he will not let him get away with what he did. While recovering, Kyo pushes through his workout. Panting, he lowers himself again and notices that his injuries are completely gone. The memory of those terrifying opponents still lingers, prompting him to vow to become stronger. Something suddenly catches his attention. His eyes land on a key labeled as Adventurer's Key Level 5, and reaches for it. A system prompt appears and asks if he would like to use it, prompting him to agree this time as he selects the option. A portal suddenly bursts open which surprises Kyo. Caught off guard, he's lifted into the air and his body twisting in the swirling light. Then he vanishes into the portal, reappearing midair before crashing hard into sand. Groaning, he sits up and brushes sand from his face, realizing he's been dropped into a desert. The system identifies the area as a dungeon called Sunstone Maze. Looking around, he realizes he's completely unprepared for another dungeon so soon. He stumbles forward through the heat, sweat dripping and clothes filling with sand. Despite the desert setting, no monsters appear. He walks on, wondering why nothing's happening. Then something catches his eye in the sand, and he reaches down to dig. His fingers grasp a bright blue crystal hidden just beneath the surface, realizing that it's a magic stone. That's when it hits him that he has appeared into a mining dungeon. He drops to his knees after realizing too late this is an extremely rare type of dungeon. Here, rare magic stones can be mined, so he begins searching desperately, thinking this might be where a magic stone he has been looking for lies. The desert is littered with stones, while he claws at the sand, sweating and gasping until his eyes sharpen as he finally finds the moon magic stone. His excitement displays as he holds it, hopeful that he can finally cure Natsu's mysterious illness. He never imagined the quest's key would lead him to this. The illness, once unknown, is now labeled Magical Vortex, and there's only one cure. What Natsu needs is a medicine made from moon magic stones, and he needs 10 of them. He stares at the stone and declares he'll find more whatever it takes. Digging furiously, he searches under the blazing sun, breath ragged. Time passes, and the stones he finds are few and far between, until his time is up, and the dungeon will be closed, which triggers him to panic. The portal begins to open, but he clenches the sand and screams that he's not ready to leave. The stones he's collected are far from enough despite his efforts, until he's pulled away from the dungeon by force. Back in his room, he punches the ground and yells in frustration. He begs the system to send him back, noting that the time was not enough. After all that digging, he only found one. Kyo closes his eyes, recalling the first time he got the key. He notes his desire to return to the mining dungeon, aware that the activation condition is dangerous. However, Kiyo doesn't mind this and will do it over and over again. Suddenly, he looks down and finds another item pressed against his chest. It's an unknown orange magic stone, which is the one he also brought back. Aside from the moon magic stone, the rest he collected were worthless. He studies the orange gem closely and decides to bring it to a specialist. Water runs over his battered body as he showers, but the pain is still there. Later, he arrives at the hospital. He gently knocks on her door, while Natsu lights up the sight of him. He smiles and tells her that he brought a present for her, which turns out to be the moon magic stone. She looks at it with a soft expression, but then suddenly says she might not need it. His face twists in confusion as she jokes that it's a bit lame. He quietly says he'll go back to work and starts to walk away. At the door, he turns to ask if she really doesn't want it, and she simply confirms. Leaving the hospital, he clutches the necklace around his neck. He makes his way to the appraisal department where magic stones are inspected. There, he's greeted by the merchant with an eerie smile. Despite his suspicious appearance, he claims to be top-notch. He immediately notices the moon magic stone and calls it rare while Kiyo asks if he knows about it. But Kiyo places the unknown stone on the table instead, prompting the merchant to pick it up and examine it under a lens. His demeanor shifts, prompting Kiyo to notice it. Hearing that it is an extraordinary product, it is revealed that the magic stone is capable of adding special effects to weapons, prompting Kiyo to recall from his past life that it was an enchant magic stone. The merchant assumed he thought they weren't particularly rare, revealing that the amber magic stone, which is taken from a special monster, can enchant a weapon. The merchant asks Kiyo if he knows what happens next, revealing that he won't have to work anymore. The merchant questions Kiyo's nonchalant reaction, so he tries to convince him by repeating that he won't need to work again. Puzzled, Kiyo asks what he means, making the merchant reveal that the monster absorbs the souls of the monsters it consumes. It then makes the absorbed monsters its subordinates and takes over their abilities. Whether it gains the same ability or not can only be confirmed through testing. Finding the idea exhilarating, Kiyo agrees to proceed. Kiyo and the merchant have come to an agreement until the appraisal is complete and Kiyo's told to check the effects himself. Deciding to test it, he thinks of the perfect place. At the training ground known as the summoner's room, the summoner calls for the next person to step forward. Kiyo greets the summoner with respect, but she notes he's only E-class and calls him weak. Preparing her magic, she remarks that the amount she's summoning should be enough. A magic circle flares as the summoning begins, until an E-rank sweet pompon appears. It floats toward him, then its monstrous maw opens wide to attack. With a swift strike, Kiyo slices the pompon apart in a burst of power. The monster's body dissolves into a glowing energy that flows into him. Bathed in green light, Kiyo feels the absorbed power coursing through his body. The summoner watches in shock as the system registers an absorbed magic defense point. Checking his status, Kiyo's stunned to see the change. His magic defense has increased, now reaching 261. She demands to know what just happened, but Kiyo brushes it off. Then he questions if the country's summoner can only bring forth such low-level monsters. Offended, she glares and calls him impudent. Declaring her intent, she decides to let him face stronger foes until he cries for help. Two others step forward, asking if they can join in. A couple of adventurers greet them warmly, but the summoner informs them that it's Kiyo's reserved time and asks them to wait. Presenting a card, they hint that they can make a special request with it. They ask if a mass summoning can be arranged, confident it will avoid complaints if Kiyo joins them. Excited by the request, the summoner notes it's a big order from a VIP customer, while Kiyo says he doesn't mind, seeing it's an E-class and a D-class together, prompting the summoner to declare that the amount she'll summon should be reasonable for the match. A glowing magic circle begins to form once more. A swarm of D-rank common goblins floods the area, prompting Kiyo to note their sheer number. The adventurer commends the summoner's ability, then he asks Kiyo about his job, to which he simply replies that he's classless. The adventurer is in disbelief, prompting him to laugh at Kiyo and apologizes for involving him. Drawing their weapons, they prepare for battle. With a shout to fight together, the pair charges into the goblin horde. They strike down enemies in unison, holding their ground. One goblin leaps toward the man, but he counters with a forceful blow. He swiftly follows up with a kick, sending another goblin flying. He flips through the air, delivering a crushing kick that sends a goblin reeling. Another is struck down with a powerful strike. Calling out to her partner, he boasts of his kill and she confirms hers as well. Energized, he urges for the next target, but then he freezes, stunned at the sight of Kiyo standing amidst a field of fallen goblins. He calmly states that he took care of his entire side. Shocked, the adventurer exclaims if he defeated all of them, and Kiyo confirms it. Grateful, he thanks the adventurer and notes how costly mass summoning can be. Kiyo walks away and tells him that he'll rely on him again. Then the summoner stops in and questions the movements he used just now. She calls it impossible for an E-class and classless to have such ability, demanding to know his identity, but he simply replies that he's just classless. After a pause, she tells him to come again and promises to summon even stronger monsters next time. He gives a faint smile and says he'd be grateful. Meanwhile, Kyo reflects on gaining 3 points after defeating 42 goblins and notes the weapon can't always absorb points. While showering, he realizes that the more he fights, the stronger he becomes. Acknowledging it as a terrifying weapon, he finishes and heads out. A man suddenly approaches, asking if he's an adventurer, and he confirms. He's informed that an overflow has just occurred, and all adventurers are being mobilized to suppress it. He recalls that a dungeon overflow is when monsters spill into the human world. Turning sharply, he sees an emergency quest being initiated. Kyo's excitement displays as he receives a new and interesting quest. He looks forward to exclusive rewards as an emergency quest is initiated, ordering him to eradicate the cause of the overflow. Puzzled by the task, he wonders if overflows aren't just natural disasters. The officer tells him to hurry the scene, to which Kyo acknowledges. He proceeds to pack his items, but the officer panics and tells him to rush. The scene shifts to Shibuya, where chaos erupts. Terrified civilians run as monsters attack, forcing people to scatter in panic. A girl screams as stumbles into the ground. A goblin leaps at her with its weapon raised, but she's saved when its head is severed in an instant. Confused, she looks up to see Kyo standing over the fallen monster. Relieved, she thanks him and calls him a swordsman, but Kyo responds that he's classless, leaving her shocked and speechless. Frightened, she runs off, while he questions her reaction. Moments later, buildings start to burn from the chaos. A powerful figure smashes an adventurer through a wall as a shadowy presence emerges. The monster tears into its prey before revealing itself as a D-class hobgoblin. Shocked onlookers exclaim in disbelief at its appearance. As panic spreads, one man shouts that he doesn't want to die and tries to flee. An adventurer tells those who wish to run to go ahead while he stays to fight, until Kyo arrives and introduces himself as an E-class adventurer who is classless. The adventurer panics and fears that Kyo will just hold them back, until a vehicle hurls with immense force towards their way. He manages to barely dodge while Kyo jumps over the car. The hobgoblin watches with a menacing grin and laughs at the chaos they cause. It is revealed that hobgoblins have high attack power, but lack intelligence. Kyo tells the adventurer that they should finish this quickly, while he tries to draw its attention. With the plan set, Kyo charges toward the enemy, shocking the adventurer by his recklessness. The hobgoblin notices Kyo, triggering it to chase him. He observes calmly as the creature charges, while the adventurer realizes the plan. Seizing the opening, the man drives his weapon into the hobgoblin's back. The hobgoblin turns toward the adventurer, attempting to strike him with its weapon, but Kyo strikes with a powerful blow. Kyo absorbs an attack point from the kill, then asks the adventurer if he's still able to fight. The adventurer confirms with renewed determination as he grabs Kyo's hand, until something catches their attention. Higher class adventurers begin arriving to join the fight, while the adventurer insists their role as lower class adventurers is to protect civilians, but Kyo dashes off anyway and ignores his reminder. Sighing in exasperation, the adventurer chases Kyo as he slips away. Kyo approaches a restricted area crackling with energy. Before him, the entrance to the high-low dungeon pulses with power, while a gasping breath catches his attention. Kyo asks the adventurer why he followed him, and he admits it's because he was heading somewhere dangerous alone. Kyo thinks about his next words and attempts to be humorous, but the adventurer responds that even if Kyo is strong, it's still dangerous to go alone. He admits it's dangerous for him too, but vows to make it home for a drink. Kyo tells him not to jinx it. Then he explains that he's here to eradicate the source of the overflow, prompting the adventurer to question if it's truly like a natural disaster. Determined, Kyo suggests they find out for themselves. As they approach the glowing portal, a surge of energy shocks them both while Kyo winces from the power. Realizing it's connected to the moon magic stone, he notes the immense energy it holds as the light engulfs them. Kyo is thrown off from the impact, worrying the adventurer as he asks if he is okay. The portal continues to crackle, until a figure looms which terrifies the two. A C-class Culkin suddenly appears with an ominous aura, questioning how it was found. Kyo recognizes the emblem of Culkin, while the dragon repeats his question as it completely reveals its form. The Culkin ominously wonders if it should kill them. Realizing the danger, the adventurer apologizes and admits he set up a death flag, while Kyo narrows his gaze as he prepares to fight the dragon. The Culkin lunges forward with a menacing grin, radiating dark energy as he braces himself. It roars and unleashes a powerful blast, forcing Kyo to react instantly. He rushes in to shield the adventurer as the blinding energy closes in fast. They tumble to the ground, and his eyes lock onto a sword lying nearby. He notices the sword is heavily rusted but quickly realizes that its decay is likely from the passage of time. The dragon charges again as its weapon glows with ominous light, triggering Kyo to realize a direct hit would be deadly. The adventurer urges to be left behind and calls himself a burden, but Kyo reminds him of his promise to return home and drink. Hearing this, The man's eyes widen with emotion. The Culkin unleashes another blinding blast, forcing them to evade together. The adventurer shouts about returning to share the best's sake, but Kyo replies that he's still underage. Planting his foot firmly, Kyo grips his sword despite warnings not to be reckless. With a sharp glare, Kyo recalls past battles against enemies who used breath attacks. The Culkin taunts him and questions if he can win. The dragon charges forward, triggering Kyo to react in shock. He quickly moves to intercept the attack as he dashes in. He closes the distance with his sword raised high while bracing himself from an incoming blast. Kyo notes the dragon's toughness as it roars again for another attack. He recalls how it scorches its own throat with its breath, and a magic point that lies at the center of its throat where stored magic is released. Determined, he enhances his body and aims directly for that spot. Kyo launches forward with the soaring sky dance sword, aiming straight for the dragon. Unable to react in time, the Culkin takes a critical hit from Kyo's strike. The blast engulfs the dragon and questions itself if it is defeated. Kyo notes that such a breath attack requires a tremendous amount of magic to perform as he lunges forward. With the dragon's magic depleted, he decides it's the perfect moment to strike. He charges straight toward its glowing core, then the barrier begins to crack under the force of his assault. Shards shatter away as he pushes through with relentless strength. His eyes sharp with focus and unleashes a powerful swing toward the dragon. The beast roars fiercely and gathers power once more, shocking Kyo as he realizes it still has remaining energy and takes a direct blow. The dragon steadies itself, while Kyo is sent flying. He groans in pain as the impact reverberates through his body. The dragon strikes forward, shocking Kyo as he senses the impending danger. However, the adventurer blocks the dragon's attack with a shield. Then he asks Kyo if he is okay. The adventurer admits that this is all the help he can give, but Kyo tells him it's enough. Suddenly, the dragon steps back and goes berserk, shocking the adventurer and asks what just happened. Kyo reveals that his blade is coated with a poison enchantment, which is a skill that he learned from the hobgoblin they faced earlier. As the dragon struggles, Kyo steps forward and drives the poison blade into the beast. A system message appears that confirms that he absorbs a defense point and levels up to 7. The dragon collapses and a notification declares the emergency quest complete. A reward materializes in his hand, which is an adventurer's key. Kyo silently addresses the dragon and realizes they'll face more battles ahead. The adventurer asks him about the item, but Kyo simply wipes his weapon in silence. His companion nods and apologizes for having made a thoughtless request to his benefactor. He sighs and laments that this must be why he's not popular with girls. The adventurer laughs and teases him for not denying it. Suddenly, they both look up as someone approaches. A group arrives and asks if they were the ones responsible for the scene. The adventurer points to Kyo and tells them that it was mostly him who did it. The man in black scans him to get his identity and vows to remember his name. They observe that the overflow has vanished and the gate is stabilizing. The man in black asks if Kyo knows why, but he thinks to himself that it'll be hard to stay quiet in this situation. Instead, he explains that the gate returned to normal after the dragon was defeated. The man in black ponders aloud that overflow is considered a natural disaster, but questions if that's truly the case. Kyo replies that he can only speak on what he has witnessed. He grabs his new companion, then walks away from the scene while someone asks if it is okay to let them go. A masked adventurer suggests he could extract the information in exchange for a reward. The man in black refuses and decides he wants to maintain an amicable relationship with Kyo. He discovers Kyo has a sick sister who is hospitalized, prompting a group of adventurers to discuss recruiting him and lure with money. They agree that strength in numbers is crucial as a big battle is coming. The man in black considers Kyo as a potential trump card. He suddenly calls up someone, giving an assurance that he also intends to bring the others along. The voice on the other end says he is counting on him, revealing that he is talking to Arata of the Serpent Clan. Meanwhile in his room, Kyo gathers his tools and packs them into a bag, but pauses when he hears a notification. Checking his phone, he sees an email announcing his promotion to D-Class and level 7, making him satisfied with his progress. He then notices a message from his sister linking to a news article about him. An article highlights rookie adventurers, featuring the classless Kyo and Nami, the infinite healer. Seeing their success, Natsu makes a playful message asking if he's classless, which he answers by noting he has a reason for it. Kyo finishes packing and prepares to head out. He holds the adventurer's key and declares himself fully prepared, until a warning appears stating it's meant for high-class adventurers and his level may be insufficient, followed by a prompt asking if he wants to proceed. Without hesitation, he chooses yes, receiving a message praising his choice and welcoming him. A glowing portal forms before him, and he steps inside without hesitation, engulfing him in golden light and transporting through a dazzling stream. Petals drift through the air as he arrives in a grand hall lined with soldiers. Kyo narrows his eyes as flower petals fall, revealing an elder elf seated on a grand throne in the A-rank dungeon called the World of Elves. Wondering if this is truly a dungeon, he listens as the elder calls him one guided by the will of the gods. Puzzled, Kyo considers whether this could be a quest. Kyo introduces himself and states he's there to find the moon magic stone. The elder acknowledges this, noting it's to treat the magic vortex, shocking Kyo. The elder offers to prepare an alchemist to assist him, but he adds that the moon magic stone is also a valuable resource for them. Kyo realizes they likely want him to do something extreme, prompting the elder to call him clever and praise him as a good adventurer. A subordinate whispers to the elder, who reacts with surprise upon learning Kyo is classless. The elf is confused while the elder questions if there was a mistake in the assessment, but Kyo asks if there's a problem, to which the elf replies no. The elder affirms that the will of the gods is never wrong and declares Kyo's task is to duel. Kyo learns his opponent is known as the Great Sinner and wonders about the duel. His crime is revealed to be murdering his kin, causing chaos and terror. In a flashback, the Great Sinner coldly stated he had no reason and used his power simply because he could. With a manic expression, he unleashes a surge of destructive magic. Their village was engulfed in fire as their kin was burned alive. While the elder explains that killing one's own kin is a sacred law among elves, Kyo realizes they need an outsider for this task, and the elder confirms as he offers him the reward if he accepts. With a confident smile, Kyo agrees to the deal. The elf looks unsure by his highness' decision, but Kyo confirms the agreement as he shakes hands with the elder. The elder says the duel will be held tomorrow, and grants him the freedom to explore the city until then. Surprised, Kyo steps out into the bustling elf world's citizen city. A woman greets Kyo warmly and offers to guide him through the city. As they walk, he wonders if this is really a dungeon, and she explains that it is, but it's special. She adds that it's been 10 years since an outsider visited, prompting Kyo to ask what happened to that person, to which the woman chillingly responds that he died. Kyo talks to himself and finds her reaction scary, until elves start clapping, which catches his attention. The woman notes that there seems to be an event, prompting her to suggest they take a look around, and Kyo agrees. A performer gathers the crowd's attention, inviting them to watch some magic. With a flourish, he casts a skill enhancement spell, followed by a blazing fireball. The fireball soars into the air and explodes with great force, surprising Kyo with its power. The performer explains its magic that temporarily boosts one's magic and skills, earning applause from the crowd. The woman adds that this enhancement magic was only recently invented. Kyo acquires the skill enhancement ability and considers it a useful start. As night falls, his guide ends the tour, and he expresses interest in seeing more if he has time. With a knowing smile, she warns that it depends on whether he survives tomorrow. Kyo's gaze sharpens before he gives his guide a parting wave before heading off through a dimly lit corridor. The next day, his footsteps echo as he emerges into a bright arena, drawing attention from the gathered crowd. Spotting something ahead, he reacts with surprise. The Great Sinner finally reveals himself as he enters the arena, exuding a menacing aura. Kyo notes he's different from the rumors, while the Great Sinner confirms that killing Kyo will grant his release. He suddenly gathers dark energy and begins casting a powerful spell. Kyo realizes in shock that his opponent has altered the weather. The Great Sinner declares that a festival must be grand and begins casting grand magic. With a crazed grin, he tells Kyo to become nourishment for its completion. A sphere of water magic forms in the Great Sinner's hands, releasing the spell Aqua Nevalerium. The torrent surges toward Kyo, wrapping around him in a crushing wave. He struggles as the water engulfs him. Kyo is baffled as water pours down on him, realizing the rain is falling only around him as he struggles to move. The Great Sinner gathers a swirling mass of purple energy in her hand. With a crazed grin, he casts Knock Viscaria. Dark energy swirls at Kyo's feet, triggering his foot to slam into the ground, prompting him to gasp in shock as the muddy water drowns him like a quicksand. Realizing it's an unknown magic, he grits his teeth in frustration. Kyo grips his hand on the ground to avoid further drowning, while the crowd erupts in cheers. The Great Sinner mocks him and calls his attack just the opening act. Laughing, he taunts him for falling for the bait. Meanwhile, the elder watches and says it was too much for a mere human, but it's not like one of their kind is dying. Determined not to end without a fight, Kyo activates body enhancement. He endures the pressure, channeling his energy. Straining, Kyo forces himself upward and breaks free from the mire. His opponent's eyes widen in surprise at his sudden strength. Drenched in light and water, Kyo coughs and thanks the fact he mastered it. Feeling his improved agility, he readies his stance and unleashes the soaring sky dance sword, slicing through the air with glowing arcs. However, Kyo is caught off guard, seeing an ice burst upward and forms a towering frozen structure. The Great Sinner scoffs and says human magic can only go so far. Cold winds swirl around him as frost spreads underfoot. A passive skill called Guard of the Ice Store activates, which grants cold resistance. Suddenly, the Great Sinner raises his hand, gathering power as he tells him to know the difference in their levels. He unleashes the spell Crystallis Hymris and sends a surge of magic downward. Shards of ice rain down from above, while Kyo braces himself. Suddenly, energy bursts outward as Kyo takes all the strike. The crowd watches in shock as the impact shakes the arena, until a massive crystal formation erupts from the attack. The crowd cheers as the Great Sinner calls the duel too easy, confident this will clear him of accusations. With a sinister smile, he asks the elder to agree with him, but he remains silent as his sweat trails down his face. Suddenly, a burst of power explodes, which leaves the Great Sinner wide-eyed in shock. The onlookers turn their attention to the frozen formation, as it begins to crack as heat builds from within. With a fiery shout, he unleashes Flame Sword Radiance. The blazing strike shatters the ice, which frees Kyo, impressing the Great Sinner that he withstood his attack. Kyo assesses him and realizes he's not the power type despite appearances, making the duel interesting. The Great Sinner prepares for another attack, asking if he should increase the output as energy crackles in his hand. Kyo acknowledges his skill but feels surprised with the thought that he can still get stronger. He admits he can't withstand many more attacks and wonders about a countermeasure. Determined, he tries to recall information on how to tackle elves. In a past encounter, he met a clumsy elf in a dungeon. That elf's hair caught fire from his own magic that caused him to flee in panic. He's certain his opponent is mistaken about him and suspects he can't use magic. Realization flashes in his eyes as he formulates a plan, while the crowd roars with excitement around them. The Great Sinner accuses him of having the nerve to look away, charging with a ball of energy in his hand, but Kyo approaches him with his sword. The latter activates body enhancement, but the Great Sinner manages to dodge his strike. Kyo powers up once more, but he dodges swiftly again with a smirk on his face. He backflips through the air, landing in a crouch and mocking Kyo's technique unskilled. With a menacing grin, he asks if that's his full power. However, Kyo smirks subtly until his long hair whips around as he steadies himself. Gasps rise from the crowd, triggering the Great Sinner to clutch his head in disbelief. It is revealed that elves can manipulate powerful magic through their special hair, holding a strand in his hand and asking if that's correct. Light breaks through the arena as his opponent reacts in terror. Declaring at the end, Kyo readies his weapon as he charges. The Great Sinner snarls in rage that a mere human would dare challenge him. He gasps in horror as his power begins to fade, until a powerful slash strikes through the air. Kyo lands on the ground effortlessly, sending his opponent crashing to the ground. A notification suddenly appears that he has absorbed 10 magic points. The elder declares that the crime of killing one's own kin has been judged and offers blessings to the adventurer guided by the will of the gods. Petals fall as the arena celebrates Kyo's victory. Praising his accomplishment, the elder clasps his hand firmly until he asks where Kyo learned the secret of their hair. He stays silent, prompting the elder to note his refusal to speak. He offers to add an extra reward if he keeps their secret, revealing it to be the Abyssal Magic Stone. Recognizing it as the magic stone of the final dungeon, Kyo is taken aback. The elder tells him to bring it to an enchanter to learn how to use it. He suddenly pauses until he gets Kyo's reassurance to keep his promise. Petals fall as the elder presents the promised Moon Magic Stone. Accepting it with a smile, Kyo grips the reward. The elder adds that to further reward his service, he will reveal one more thing, and it is that the Moon Magic Stones can be crafted. Kyo is shocked and tries to ask for more details, but light engulfs the area as the portal suddenly appears. The elder bids him farewell, saying they will meet again with the will of the gods. Moments later, he finds himself back in his room. Kyo wonders about the possibility of creating magic stones and questions if it could also eliminate the magic vortex from this world. In a tense boardroom, the members sit around the table as a man enters. The meeting begins until someone clicks a remote to reveal a muscular figure on the screen, leaving the audience in shock. It is revealed that Kyo is working out until someone calls his name. Appearing on a screen, he's told to put on clothes. The man in black clears his throat before revealing he wants to recommend him for a certain job. Kyo reacts with curiosity as it's explained that skilled adventurers are being gathered for a major mission. Following Alice's suggestion, Kyo asks them to tell him the details, while the man warns him that what he is about to say is classified and it should not leak outside. He suddenly feeds him the information, showing a chart on the screen which is a breakdown of adventurer deaths. The data highlights that many are caused by attacks from fellow adventurers, noting that while some are accidental. Kyo finishes his sentences and suspects that he is referring to player killers, asking if he's correct. The man is surprised he knows about it since the information hasn't been made public. Kyo says he's only heard rumors from his time, silently wondering if his task is to take them down. The man accepts his answer and shifts the conversation forward. An organization of player killers has fallen for their bait, while Kyo states they'll catch them all on the stage prepared and confirms the plan. The man smiles as he is pleased at how quickly he understands. He explains it's a dangerous secret mission with equally valuable rewards and Kyo's reputation will grow. The man also points out his hospital expenses and suggests it's not a bad deal. Kyo agrees to take the mission as he thinks about his sister's situation. He asks for the plan to start preparing and the man thanks him while expecting great results. A file is sent to his phone which reveals the leader chosen for the mission, who is the S-class adventurer Arata. Meanwhile, a towering monster appears as Arata asks if everyone can see it. He explains it's a B-rank monster that can be easily defeated if the countermeasures are known. The creature charges forward, smashing the ground with its tusks. He reveals its weak point, aiming a strike directly at its head. With a confident smile, he easily takes it down while making it look simple. Fans watch the live broadcast and cheer loudly. Suddenly, his team calls Arata to pack up, while he waves with a bright grin and thanks everyone for watching and declares his love for them. Arata slumps into his seat with a groan, muttering about the difficulty of being an idol, only to be told to watch his words. They receive a message which Arata suspects is from his clan. The text reveals that the officials have fallen into their trap, and everything is proceeding as planned. The sender ends the message with a wish for him to enjoy the rest. Arata wonders what kind of riffraff the officials have gathered, then he checks his phone and recognizes Kyo as the adventurer who defeated the Revenant, prompting Arata's excitement to meet him at the Red Dungeon. Meanwhile, Kyo carries yellow roses as he visits his sister at the hospital. Entering the room, he greets Natsu, who smiles brightly at the sight of the bouquet. He tells her he has good news that they might be able to cure her illness soon, but she reminds him the doctor said there's no cure as she gently holds her hand. Kyo reassures Natsu, telling her it's okay. She smiles brightly and says she believes in him. A nurse watches as they talk, while Natsu flips through a book and notes that yellow roses mean fading love, prompting Kyo to walk away with disappointment in himself. As the sun sets, Kyo makes a phone call and reports about the job he's been offered. It is revealed that Alice is on the other line and says she'll be glad if he accepts, though she can't attend this time with him, and assures there will be plenty of skilled adventurers, especially Arata and Hina, who are both known for their strength. Kyo looks at Arata's profile, who is revealed to be an S-rank assassin, while Alice suggests they go on a date after the job, which surprises Kyo. She praises his talent and says she wants to know him better, but he replies that he'll think about it, prompting her to tease him about playing hard to get before ending the call, leaving him in thought as the sun sets. Kyo reels at the thought that the date might be confirmed. Meanwhile, in a gathering, the man in black thanks everyone for coming and declares that the player killers will be buried tonight. He acknowledges it's a tough job but expresses confidence in the adventurer's ability. Finally, he announces the leader of the mission. Arata introduces himself as an S-rank adventurer with the job of assassin. He assures everyone that as the leader, he'll do his best to guide them and encourages the group to succeed together. Meanwhile, someone suddenly approaches Kyo to confirm his identity. He demands to know who is asking until Hina introduces herself as an A-rank archer who is Alice's top disciple. She points out that Alice favors him but warns him that she will not lose to Kyo. Meanwhile, someone suddenly stops her ranting. An A-rank adventurer named Shiro, a poison alchemist, introduces himself as their comrade. Hina suddenly questions why Alice would choose such a low-rank adventurer like Kyo, as he only has skill and nothing more. Shiro tries to manage her and warns not to act high and mighty. Suddenly, a quest appears which orders Kyo to steal Arata's smartphone, leaving him confused about the strange task. He suddenly finds himself face to face with Arata, who approaches with a confident and sly grin. A knight suddenly appears and announces that he will explain today's operation. Inside the dungeon, novice adventurers act as decoys while training under their leader's guidance, unaware of the mission due to confidentiality. The Serpent Clan and their player kill team take the bait and plan to ambush the decoys, but the elimination squad will strike the moment they appear and annihilate them on the spot. With the briefing concluded, Kyo removes his earphones while the knight wishes everyone good luck as the plane takes off. From Kyo's seat, another passenger admits he's feeling nervous. On the plane, Arata reassures a nervous adventurer that they're not alone without knowing he is actually part of the Serpent Clan. Kyo notes that Arata has been busy since boarding and he hasn't had the chance to steal his phone yet. Suddenly, Hina peers over the seat, demanding to know if Kyo's really classless, and he admits it's true. She notices he's been watching Arata and asks if he's a fan, to which he vaguely replies. Smiling, she accuses him of lying, but he questions her reasoning. She explains he's been watching the direction of Arata's feet, likening it to waiting for prey to show an opening, leaving him momentarily speechless. She smirks and notes that archers are good at following glances, then playfully points at him. He asks what she's planning and offers to help, cheerfully revealing that Alice left him in her care. The scene shifts to the plane arriving and stopping on a runway. Passengers disembark as the crew reminds them to watch their step. A sudden thud startles everyone and Hina apologizes after bumping into Arata. He checks if she's alright while Kyo finally makes his move. Hina excitedly greets Arata to distract him and declares she's a big fan. Kiyo reflects that his past experience as an assassin unexpectedly proved useful. Then his quest is completed and grants him the skill Cat's Hand. Watching the cheerful Hina, he notes she's impressive in many ways, then notices something surprising on the device in his hand. He examines the phone closely, finding out significant information which leads him to understand the situation. The scene shifts to a forest path with a glowing portal ahead, while nearby, a startled animal reacts to a sudden rush of wind. A vehicle arrives near the forest portal, and passengers step out as the man in black meets the adventurer. He states that if the intel is correct, the targets are just ahead, and gives the order to wipe them out. Vowing to root out evil, the group rallies with determination. As they walk together, Hina asks if Kiyo's information is truly reliable. While the people are collecting empty bento boxes, Kiyo looks at them, while she recalls they had even skipped breakfast together. Hina is scared as she didn't expect the job to turn into this, but Kiyo reassures her it's okay, placing a hand on her shoulder and promises to handle it. She huffs in response, teasing that he's acting cool despite being classless and wonders if that job might actually be the strongest. Clenching his fist, Arata vows to protect everyone's back. The group charges forward at a rallying cry, catching the attention of the pair watching. With a smirk, Arata takes out his serpent-like tongue, prompting a shocked reaction from Hina. Approaching the glowing portal, Kiyo tells him to stay calm and calls her capable. Hina huffs quietly as he steps through, realizing why Alice praises him. Finally, they arrive at the E-rank dungeon of the ancient city. The group crosses a red bridge nearing the gate. Suddenly, an explosion erupts ahead, shaking the trees and blocking the path. As some brace themselves, a scream echoes through the golden forest. A group of intimidating figures emerges, while one of the adventurers demands to know who they are. But the woman in purple swiftly attacks. Her strike sends a man flying, knocking him out instantly. The fallen adventurer's allies recoil in fear as the eye-patched man grins, declaring it's time for some fun. Arata comments that they've arrived right on time, catching the enemy's attention. The extermination squad rallies and declares they won't let the attackers have their way. Arata apologizes for the wait, while the adventurers cheer at his presence and convince themselves they're safe, while others remind them they're also here to fight. Purple energy suddenly surges on an adventurer's head, triggering him and the others to reel in pain. The adventurers collapse and their bodies go numb, shocking the watching adventurers. The enemies smirk as their group bursts into mocking laughter, until Arata finally shows his true colors, triggering cries of confusion from the fallen adventurers. He declares that evil is everything born from weakness, striking down the adventurer with brutal force. Revealing his identity, Arata mocks those who gathered without knowing his true nature, proclaiming he is an S-rank adventurer, influencer, and the founder of the Serpent Clan. The crowd reacts in shock as his words sink in. The enemy mocks that resistance is futile and claims no one can defeat Arata. Agreeing, he declares that the weak must be exterminated, driving his weapon down with a brutal strike, until a loud thud reverberates, catching the adventurer and Arata's attention. It turns out that Kiyo blocks his attack in time. Arata is surprised and questions why he's still so energetic. Holding up Arata's phone, Kiyo calmly says he's lost his appetite. A tense stare follows from Arata, while he reflects she never thought it would come to this. Arata's lips curl into a grin, a sinister chuckle escaping like a serpent. Kiyo stays on guard, while Arata realizes that their plan has been discovered. Arata teases him for being a compulsive thief, noting he didn't share the information with anyone else, noting that he couldn't believe it without seeing the full picture. Silently, Kiyo agrees with Arata's assumptions. He recalls being unable to unlock the phone to see the full messages, which makes him worry that there might be other conspirators, concluding that they couldn't trust the entire subjugation team. Hina admits she had a hunch. She points at Shiro and accuses him of being the one who poisoned the food, prompting him to smirk and reveal a vial in his hand. She admits the plan was slightly off, until clapping echoes as Arata steps forward. With a grin, he commends them but questions what they can do with only 2 people. He mocks them further, pointing out that one of them is merely D-class. The enemy laughs confidently with his group behind him, while Hina tries not to fall into despair. She offers to buy them some time. Drawing her bow, she tells Kiyo to report the truth to the authorities and Alice, but he immediately refuses, which leaves her shocked. He says he was only hired to deal with the player kills, but she questions what a mere D-class adventurer can do. However, he tells her not to worry and asks her to inform the authorities instead. Hina protests and reminds him she was asked by Alice to look after him. Seeing her determination, he commends her sincerity. Meanwhile, Arata appears behind them and asks if their conversation is finally over. Kiyo's caught off guard, realizing it was an assassin movement skill. He recognizes that it was Shadow Step. Arata calls him and says he's been interested in him for a while. With a cold declaration, he vows to kill every adventurer present without leaving a single one alive. The crowd gasps in fear as Arata steps forward. Leaning in, he taunts Kiyo and asks if he thinks he can stop him. Turning to his allies, Arata shouts for them to join in and urges them to go as wild as they want. With a smirk, he tells them to make sure they entertain him well. Dark energy swirls around him as he fades away using his shadow step, while Kyo notices the enemies behind him. Suddenly, he sees Hina appearing in front of him with her bow. With a powerful strike, she sends multiple foes flying through the air. They crash hard to the ground, one rolling away as more enemies rush in, but Hina readies her arrows once more. An enemy attempts to strike her, but she prepares in defiance until Kyo takes out his sword and calls her name. In a swift slash, he sends multiple foes flying, leaving them screaming in pain. She glances back after the enemies are knocked down, while Kyo raises his sword and confidently reminds her he once said being classless is the strongest. Shocked, she yells that it's not the class but him who's strong. Suddenly, a small vial clatters to the ground, catching their attention, prompting the both of them to notice it. Hina instantly urges him to get away, until an explosion of green smoke fills the area which separates them. She realizes they've been split up, and a voice declares that her opponent should be a fellow A-class. Shiro taunts her as he corners her, while she stands before him, calling him a traitor. Hina pulls back her bowstring and declares she'll end this quickly. He responds calmly and notes she speaks as if strength is the only thing that matters. She glares and says his way of speaking has always pissed her off. Shiro smirks and calls it a matter of personality, while launching several vials toward her. She fires an arrow mid-flight, shattering the incoming vials. The vials explode in a burst of color, while she yells that she'll never understand him. He laughs as a single vial spins through the air before shattering on impact, followed by a chain of small explosions erupts around Hina, leaving her tense and on guard. A powerful explosion engulfs her in blinding light, while flames erupt across the battlefield as Shiro laughs. He admits he knew she would shoot until Hina's arrow strikes his shoulder. He gasps in pain, while she reminds him that arrows don't always come from the front. With a confident smile, she accuses him of blocking his own view. He stares in disbelief, calling it impossible before admitting defeat. She suddenly calls out to check if Kyo's still alive. He pauses at her voice, and she smirks while saying he's quite a reliable classless person. Suddenly, Arata appears behind him as he vows to defeat every single one of them, alarming Kyo as his enemy lunges at him with a sharp dagger. Arata slams down with incredible force, hitting Kyo, but he remains standing. Arata grins and says nothing begins until he steps in. Observing him, Kyo admits he's incredibly fast and that he can't keep up in his current state. Hina recognizes the overwhelming difference of an S-class and urges Kyo to run away. Dark energy swirls around Arata while Kyo grips his sword tighter, followed by a grin. She catches a glimpse of him smiling in the midst of the tension. With determination, he readies himself for the coming clash. Kyo suddenly drives his sword down with precision, shocking his opponent. His sword pierces Arata's shadow, while he freezes in shock. Kyo suddenly reveals that he's been the top assassin for over 10 years as well. Glaring forward, Arata questions how Kyo knows the weakness of Shadow Step. The latter coolly replies that he simply knows a bit about assassins, prompting Arata to respond that he is full of mysteries. Arata suddenly puts his dagger on his thumb and asks if Kyo recognizes it, cutting his skin. A swirling vortex of energy forms around, while shadowy power engulfs him as he moves in with a predatory grin. The sudden attack shocks the onlookers and leaves them wide-eyed in alarm. Dark energy spreads across the temple grounds and shroud everything in its presence. Realizing the move, Kyo identifies it as an assassin's skill called Dark Contract. His eyes narrow at the familiar sensation it carries, prompting him to confirm that Arata is a contract assassin. A sneak attack looms from the ground, but Kyo catches the dagger between his fingers while noting it will be the most popular in 20 years. With confidence, Kyo claims to know all their tricks. He grabs the opponent's wrist in a swift counter, shocking Arata as the strike is deflected, while the dagger flies from his grasp. Arata retreats with a click of his tongue as dark ripples spread beneath him, but Kyo lunges forward and strikes with precision. A powerful slash bursts through and hits the target. The blow lands on a strange, floating eye-like creature, which is revealed to be a familiar known as the Shadow Messenger. The surge of energy that engulfs the temple slowly goes away, while the dagger clatters to the ground with a sharp clang. From the sidelines, Hina declares that everything is now clear. The weapon is picked up, while Arata remarks that the other acts as if they know everything about assassins. Kyo narrows his eyes and says he'll leave it to his imagination. Stepping forward, Arata tells him he's fundamentally misunderstanding something. With a burst of energy, he drives an attack straight into Kyo. The blow sends him reeling, followed by a swift kick to the face. He's launched into the air, the force sending him tumbling backward. Arata claims that even if the other can counterattack, he can't defeat an S-class like him, but Hina charges forward, preparing her arrow to help Kyo. She readies her bow and shouts for him to run, but Arata smirks in response, which fades away instantly. Kyo stands up and asks his opponent why he's laughing, adding that it should be obvious for an assassin. Kiyo admits he's been saved by the other's low attack power, knowing a different S-class job would have killed him instantly. Arata narrows his eyes with interest and a sly grin spreads across his face. Asked if he has a chance of winning, Kiyo confidently confirms that he has. He decides now is the time and calls for his status to open, prompting a glowing display to reveal his proficiency at 81. The number flashes, drawing shocked reactions. Hina demands to know what that status means, while Kiyo calmly states that the conditions have been met to unlock a hidden job, triggering shocked reactions. A glowing lock icon appears, while Kiyo announces the release. He then declares a job change as the light engulfs him. His body becomes surrounded by a brilliant blue aura, marking the transformation. Knowing everything has led to this moment, Kiyo's stats flash and reveal his capabilities. A notification declares the unlocking of a hidden job. The title of crafter is obtained, his appearance shifting with newfound power. Kiyo stands with a determined look, while Arata's shocked voice calls out at the mention of crafter. Hina remarks she's never heard of a job that requires being classless, and he explains it's different from a requirement. He adds that the classless job was chosen because proficiency accumulates quickly. Arata downplays Kiyo and notes that changing jobs alone won't close the gap in their skills. Arata unleashes a flurry of blades, his attack named Serpent Strike. In response, Kiyo calmly begins to craft, followed by a blade materializing in the air. A massive weapon takes the form, which is the troll's greatsword. Arata recoils in shock and thinks he summoned a weapon, but Kiyo corrects him that he created it while warning it's too soon to be surprised. Countless glowing weapons appear, floating around him, triggering Arata's shock to intensify. Hina realizes the magic power in each weapon is overwhelming. Kiyo calls out to his opponent and promises to show the view from the top of proficiency. Kiyo stands before countless crafted swords. With a calm expression, he notes the difference between this and simply creating duplicates. The sight of so many weapons shocks his opponent, who wonders how one person could create them with pure magic power. The thought of such a feat feels impossible, until a realization strikes that the D-class before him might actually surpass his own strength. Kiyo taunts his opponent and declares he will close the distance himself. A glowing sword launches forward with force, shocking Arata as his eyes widen in alarm. At the fierce gaze, Kiyo drives the sword through Arata's body, cutting him in half. His body suddenly turns into stone, prompting Kiyo to spot a clone, which is another assassin technique. Hina watches in awe and questions the surge of power, struggling to comprehend his incredible speed. Alarm fills Arata's eyes as hides from the shadows while facing overwhelming danger. A brilliant golden light erupts from Kiyo's hand as he crafts the shining sword luminous. He grips the hilt tightly, channeling immense power. With a command to illuminate, the blade blazes as he casts golden light across the battlefield. The golden flames sear Arata and force him to reveal himself, while Hina screams in shock after finding out where he is hiding. The glowing sword hovers before Kiyo as he prepares his next move. Cold energy gathers at his fingertips, shifting the atmosphere. He then summons the ice sword Frostbind. Arata freezes in shock as massive ice blades surround him. High above, countless swords hang suspended that are ready to strike. They descend in a deadly barrage, while Arata tries to escape the swords. Blades crash down around him as he moves swiftly to escape. A pained scream echoes as the ice strikes Arata, staring in disbelief and demanding to know what he truly is. Confusion deepens as he wonders how an assassin's skills could be broken so easily. Kiyo recalls that his foe's attack and defense are low, with mobility sealed as well. He tells his opponent there's nothing left he can do. With a cold stare, he declares the fight is over. More blades materialize in the air, surrounding the battlefield. Panic flashes in his opponent's eyes as he gasps for breath, causing Arata to curse in frustration. With nowhere to escape, Arata screams as the attack closes in. Dozens of swords rain down and pin him to the ground. The crowd watches in shock at the brutal display. Standing amidst the floating swords, Kiyo challenges anyone else who dares to continue. A dagger slips from their grasp, prompting the remaining fighters to surrender. Silence falls as all eyes turn toward him. The crowd erupts in cheers and celebrates their victory. Hina instantly hands an antidote to an ally and tells them to drink it properly. She suddenly turns to Kiyo, noting how impressive he suddenly became. He quietly reflects on the massive amount of magic power the fight required. Leaning against the railing, he admits he may have pushed himself too hard. Her hand rests on his side as she offers a simple praise for his efforts. She asks about the incredible power he just displayed, and he says he's already explained it. Privately, he notes that it's no surprise no one knows about it in this era. Even 20 years later, such knowledge could only be gained through S-class connections. She wonders how he plans to explain it to others, suggesting he claims to be a D-class who changed to a hidden job and defeated an S-class assassin. She thinks it wouldn't be surprising if the news made a big stir by tomorrow. He asks if it's dangerous and she warns it's far too dangerous, which is enough to turn the world upside down. She decides to speak with Alice, planning to ask for her help in keeping it a secret, which he agrees would be useful. Curious, she asks about the hidden job and how it works. With a grin, she wonders if she can unlock the crafter job as well. Silently, he explains that unlocking the crafter job requires proficiency, which grows at different rates for each weapon. Among them, greatswords are especially difficult to level up. For the greatsword type crafter, it takes special quests and the knowledge he carried from his previous life. Even if he shared this information, he knows achieving it would still be extremely difficult. She urges him to teach her instead of keeping the knowledge to himself. He says that even if he taught her, it's unlikely she could replicate it, which she calls harsh. Instead, he offers to teach her archery. He recalls how he encountered many legendary weapons and knows a bit about them. Suspicious, she remarks that he acts like he knows everything and asks who he really is. He claims to be just an adventurer, though she points out it sounds more provoking than modest. He says it's better to keep things secret, which is what he intends to do. A group approaches to thank him for saving them. They ask for his name and about the skill he just used. Hina smirks and notes that keeping it a secret here might be harder than expected. With a small smile, he introduces himself as Kiyo. She says she can't tell him everything, but offers to share what he can. At Adventurer's Bureau, breaking news flashes across the screen, reporting that Arata has been arrested, shocking onlookers. It's revealed he was training novice adventurers in an E-class dungeon with the intent to kill them, and was arrested there along with dozens of accomplices. The police suspect he founded the Serpent Clan and has attacked numerous adventurers to date. The case is still under investigation, with other potential crimes being looked into. At the Adventurer's Bureau, phones ring non-stop as staff take calls about the incident. A worker explains that details are still being confirmed. The receptionist glances toward the entrance and notices someone she knows. Kiyo walks through the lobby, demanding his request to settle a job with the receptionist. She explains that the situation has escalated, noting that they need to discuss how to respond. From above, someone remarks that it has gotten out of hand. He spots Alice on an upper floor, while she responds with a smile and notes everyone can hear and suggests talking elsewhere. They are led into a meeting room together. Inside, Hina greets them cheerfully, realizing that Kiyo was also summoned like her. Alice teases that they seem to have gotten close, but Hina quickly denies it. Alice pats her head, acknowledging how tough it must have been. She praises her for a job well done. Smiling softly, Hina admits it was quite a mission. Suddenly, a group of men stand up, while one of them steps forward to address the matter. He bows deeply and offers a formal apology. He admits he never imagined a player killer would infiltrate their squad, calling the culprit a genius at deception. Alice remarks that it was inevitable they didn't suspect him. He admits he has no excuses. Addressing Kiyo, the man says that in addition to financial compensation, he will be promoted to a C-class adventurer as a special case. Hina notes that he was just promoted to D-class recently, surprised he's already at C-class, remarking that such an unprecedented speed of promotions has never happened before. He reacts calmly, prompting someone to tell him to be more joyful about it. It's confirmed there is no precedent for such a promotion. The man in black announces that 3 representatives have been called. The first is the Adventurer's Bureau Director. The second is S-Class Adventurer Goki, and the third representative is revealed to be S-Class Adventurer Alice. She proudly confirms it, asking if they now realize how amazing she is. Goki slams his fist down, dismissing the chatter. He declares he didn't come here to chit-chat, prompting the others to look at him in silence. Goki explains that since a lower-class adventurer defeated an S-Class, he grew curious about him. Kiyo's profile is scanned, showing he's only level 11. Goki notes that his job is also classless, calling it suspicious. Goki suddenly grabs Kiyo by the collar, accusing him of being another swindler like Arata. Demanding answers, he asks what trick Kiyo used, but he warns Goki to let go. The veteran adventurer challenges him to escape on his own using the power of his classless job. A staff member shouts that combat within the bureau is prohibited. The director allows it, telling them to proceed. Alice and Hina urge them to stop before things escalate. Goki taunts Kiyo, asking if his C-class status is real or just a bluff, but Kiyo stays silent as tension builds. Suddenly, something catches Goki off guard. Multiple crafted swords appear and point at Goki, prompting him to struggle in shock. Alice steps in and shouts for them to stop. She lands beside them, cutting the tension, ordering Goki to back off, which leaves him gritting his teeth. Goki is forced to back off, which leaves him frustrated. Alice checks if Kiyo is okay and apologizes. Goki walks away, described as one of the weaker S-classes desperate to protect his position. Kiyo says he doesn't mind and thanks her for stepping in. Alice suddenly gets excited and asks if that was the rumored crafter, saying it was even more incredible than she'd heard. Kiyo looks at Hina, who nervously apologizes. She admits she told Alice the reason for the secrecy. Alice reassures him, saying you can't shut people's mouths, so he shouldn't be mad. The director clears his throat to get Kiyo's attention. He asks if Kiyo has plans to disclose information about being classless. Kiyo firmly refuses to disclose anything even when offered money. He explains it could distract many adventurers and disrupt standings, just like with Goki. He adds that being scrutinized would be troublesome. The director calls it a pity and ends the meeting. As they leave, he thanks him for this effort. Alice tells Kiyo there's someone she'd like to introduce him to, hinting that he'll be surprised. As they descend the escalator, she says the person has been looking forward to seeing him again. Kiyo spots her and reacts in surprise, seeing Nami, the healer that he helped before. The evening sky glows over a towering hotel. Inside, a staff member confirms a reservation for 2, while nearby diners glance curiously. Whispers spread as they recognize Kiyo, who is with Nami, the infinite healer. She hesitates and asks if the sudden invitation was an inconvenience. Kiyo answers with a calm smile and assures her it was not at all. She admits she was simply surprised by how famous he has become. In a flashback during their reunion, he asked if she was Nami and she warmly confirmed. Nami shared that she has grown much after joining the party he recommended, proudly stating she reached level 15. Hina suddenly reacted in shock and demanded to know if he really knew the healer revolutionary. While he asked what she meant, Nami recalled how much has happened recently. While Alice noted he had become the center of attention, Nami smiled and said it was all thanks to meeting him. She fidgeted and started to explain why she was here. Alice told him she came to thank him. Blushing, Nami nervously suggested they go out for dinner together. Surprised, he asked if it would be just the two of them and thought he didn't expect this. Alice encouraged him to go and said Nami was truly grateful to him. He paused for a moment and thought, then he agreed to go. Alice declared it was decided and promised she had everything prepared. Presently, Nami sits with the menu and is ready to order. Kiyo notes she has changed a lot and become much brighter. She says it's all thanks to him and recalls how he introduced her to a party with a necromancer. Without that, she believes she would still be stuck in the past. Nami recalls joining her current party and training alongside them, explaining that after learning Soul Heal with them, both she and her world completely changed. He thinks over the term, recognizing its significance, explaining silently that a healer can only learn it when paired with a necromancer, which makes it vital for supporting weaker healers early on. In the future, this pairing will become a common combination. In this world, Nami has become a pioneer in mastering the skill. Once weak and unable to contribute, she now helps her entire party and inspires other healers in similar situations. She happily adds that the healer role has grown in popularity because of it. Kiyo notes that with more healers, the survival rate of adventurers will improve and praises her for learning a valuable skill. Nami beams with joy at his words. He notes to himself that she seems happy. With the food ready, they agree to eat together. Nami takes a bite and smiles warmly. She happily declares the food delicious. He quietly watches her, lost in thought. He pauses, setting down his utensils. Nami asks if the food doesn't suit his taste, but he assures her it's delicious. He admits he just wishes his sister could try it too, recalling how she has been hospitalized since childhood due to magic fever. She listens quietly, sensing the weight behind his words. He reflects that there is still great potential in healers. Nami says that if she becomes stronger, she might be able to cure his sister's illness. She asks him to let her know if there's anything she can do. Thanking him for saving her from difficult days, she says she wants to repay him. He responds with gratitude and promises he will ask when the time comes. She blushes as he holds her hand firmly. Nami becomes shy after Kiyo asks something from her, prompting her to reply that there is no problem with it. He then asks if they should go check it out after their meal. The scene shifts to a view of a pool on the rooftop. Nami floats in the rooftop pool, relaxing on a float. He says it was Alice's idea and admits it's nice to do this occasionally. She drifts in the water and thinks that's not quite what she meant to say. She suddenly hesitates before asking if he has a girlfriend. He answers that he doesn't have a girlfriend and doesn't plan on having one as he thinks about his sister's reaction. Nami reacts with sudden excitement, leaving him puzzled. Flustered, she quickly changes the subject. Holding up a beach ball, she says they should enjoy the pool while they're there. She tosses it into the air, ready for some fun. He blocks the incoming beach ball with a playful move, but he loses balance and nearly falls. Nami bursts into laughter at the sight. Underwater, he catches sight of her legs. Suddenly, she slips and falls into the water beside him. They resurface and gasp for air after the fall. Catching her breath, Nami laughs and calls him out playfully. He moves closer, their eyes meeting in the water. Addressing her softly, he asks if he should show her something. She blushes, caught off guard by his sudden closeness. He announces his own swimming style, calling it the Adventurer's Tuna. Spinning rapidly in the water, Nami watches while someone calls the name lame. Blushing, she admits to herself that he looks cool. From afar, someone observes them and remarks on what a weird couple they seem. A faint rumble echoes through the forest, which indicates a new adventure. Meanwhile, Hina lets out a long yawn after she, Kiyo, and Nami sit together in the Adventurers Guild lobby for an early meeting. Alice cheerfully announces a new team formation, explaining that they will take on the B-rank dungeon called the Cursed Underground Tomb. She adds that if they succeed, she will invite them to join her clan, prompting the three to react in excitement. Alice warns that they are quite strict, asking if they are still interested. Kyo likens it to an entrance test, confidently vowing they'll give it their all. Alice smiles after they collectively agree to the challenge. Kyo recalls that from his era 20 years in the future, the Carnelian Rage that was once a top S-rank clan had already disbanded. He remembers hearing about it in the news but can't recall why, lost in thought until she snaps him back. Hina points out it's rare for someone of his rank to be scouted. The team sits together and their ranks are revealed as C-rank crafter, B-rank healer, and A-rank archer. He's shocked to realize he's the lowest rank in the group, while she teases him for being slow to notice. They agree to work together again, wondering if it will be another lucky charm. Since the mission also affects her official admission, Hina eagerly promises they'll give it their all. Alice then announces the test begins tomorrow and dismisses them for now. She instructs the three to prepare themselves before leaving. As they head out, Hina casually announces she's going home to play her backlog of games, but Kyo grabs her by the collar to stop her in her tracks, telling her to come with them if she has free time, but she reminds him to handle his own preparation since he's no beginner. To her shock, Kyo implies that the preparation is for her. He assures her they're going to get something good as they leave together, but Nami pauses in thought. They arrive at the C-rank dungeon called Six-Legged Ancient Forest. Hina grumbles about having to go to a dungeon on her day off. When asked why she's tagging along, Nami apologizes sheepishly. Kyo questions if it's okay since the errand is for Hina, but she insists it will still benefit her and grant experience points. Thinking to herself, she admits she wants to stay with Kyo and be someone he can rely on. Fueled by determination, she refuses to lose. Hina agrees that she can go along, warning her not to get lost and to follow closely. He signals for silence, catching their attention. They spot a centaur resting in the clearing and wonder if it's their target. Seeing it still, he notes it's convenient they found one early. A quest notification appears, instructing them to heal the monster. Kyo frowns, thinking it's yet another absurd task. He pauses in thought before calling Nami over. She quietly agrees and moves toward him without making a sound. They carefully step through the grass until an insect bursts from the brush, alarming the centaur nearby. Hina's expression turns tense as she shouts for him to watch out. She tackles them out of harm's way as a green light flashes past. An arrow slams into the tree where they stood, shocking them. The centaur readies another shot with precise movements. Kyo notes her incredible reaction speed, relieved they narrowly avoided the hit. Nami stammers that centaurs usually don't attack humans, which Kyo agrees but notes this situation is not normal. The centaur's eyes glow as it readies another attack. He tells her to wait and insists they're not here to fight. The centaur grips its weapon tightly, dark energy swirling around it. The centaur drops to one knee, trembling in pain. Nami observes that it looks like it's suffering. Judging by her condition, he studies it closely. He warns Hina to be careful and asks if she hears anything. She hesitates and questions if there's really anything to be cautious about. Hina cries out in pain as something strikes her leg. He shouts for her to be careful. Realization suggests that the centaur's weakened state was caused by poison. Hina identifies the source as the large insect before her. It is revealed that they are ambushed by C-class monsters called veninsects, prompting Kyo to swiftly craft his weapon and summon the demon blade Miramasa. With rapid strikes, he drives the monster back to protect Hina. The monster recoils as its wings flare, as it lets out a shrill cry. Kyo then hurls his weapon forward, but the veninsect scatters shimmering dust into the air. He realizes too late that it's releasing poisonous scale powder. The group retreats toward the shadow of a tree, aware the enemy is tougher than expected. Frustrated, Kyo notes he had hoped to end it with the first strike. Nearby, Hina collapses, her body trembling from the poison's effects. A swarm of smaller insects hover menacingly, while Kyo crafts Thunder Sword and releases a surge of lightning to strike them down, covering his mouth from the lingering poison. He checks if Hina can still stand. She apologizes and admits she underestimated the dungeon and lowered her guard. Suddenly, she notices her body improving after Nami begins casting healing magic. A bright golden light surrounds them as healing magic activates to cleanse the poison. When asked if its area affect magic, Nami explains she's casting it on each person individually. She admits she can't grant poison resistance and must keep casting continuously. By maintaining constant magic, she reduces the damage from the poisonous scales. However, the effort forces her to stay still and focus entirely on her chanting. Kyo realizes the fight must end before Nami's mana is depleted and asks Hina if she can take down the creature. The queen veninsect hovers above, using poison to paralyze them before sending her minions to attack and plans to drag them to her nest. Disgusted by the thought, Hina shudders at their fate. She prepares to engage while Kyo handles the smaller enemies. They charge in as she leaves the rest to him. Fallen insect minions sizzle on the ground, while the queen veninsect is left defenseless midair. Hina launches her arrows upwards and dares it to come down and fight. Her strike pierces through the queen's wings, enraging the monster. Her attack barely damages the creature, leaving Nami exhausted from constant casting. Determined, Hina urges them to act quickly, but the queen veninsect lunges forward with its stinger aiming straight at her. It slams into her with brutal force, sending her sliding across the ground. Hina reassures the others she's fine while she grips her weapon tightly and readies herself for another attack. The queen veninsect dives toward her again, realizing the danger she is in. Suddenly, a hand grabs her arm just in time. The centaur looks at her intently, only to hand Hina her arrow. Her sharp gaze displays until a greatsword drops before her in time to protect her from the queen veninsect. With determination, Hina grabs the arrow that she's borrowing from the centaur. She readies her stance, channeling energy into the attack. She strikes with full force, piercing the queen veninsect, prompting it to screech in agony. Meanwhile, Kyo triggers a skill enhancement, prompting a surge of electricity bursts forth as he unleashes thunder swords. The attack strikes true and severs the creature's body. Kyo looks at the monster's parts falling into the ground, while Nami sighs in relief. She stammers after being called, which turns out that Hina is asking her if she can tend to the injured centaur. Kyo apologizes and requests that she endure a little longer, to which she agrees. She lifts her staff and releases a soft green glow. The injured centaur's body begins to heal as light wraps gently around her. The system announces the quest's completion, which grants Kyo a red adventurer's key as a reward. Hina thanks the centaur as she returns her bow, but she insists that Hina keeps her weapon instead. The centaur gives her a gentle smile before walking away. Confused, Hina wonders if the item was meant for her. Kyo suddenly calls out to Hina, explaining that the bow she received is the ultimate gear for archers. Reminding her of a previous conversation, he says centaurs craft their bows by infusing them with magic. These bows greatly surpass anything humans can make, and are nearly impossible to obtain. He admits he had considered stealing one. Hina smiles, saying she can tell it's an amazing bow just by holding it. Nami beams with joy and calls it incredible to receive a bow from a centaur and congratulating her. Hina glances aside, quietly taking in the moment. She admits she was surprised by Nami's arrival, but is glad she came. Hina praises her for casting magic without pause and calls her an incredible healer, making Nami smile through happy tears. Concerned, Hina asks why she's crying and she apologizes. Kyo quietly reflects that thanks to the two of them that they gained a lot of experience. Suddenly, he glances at the pinned arrow with an insect in a tree, realizing that the centaur never intended to attack them from the start. Under the moonlit forest, the centaur walks away peacefully into the night. The next day at the adventurer's office, Alice announces the start of the Carnelian Rage entrance test. The group responds with determination, while Alice wishes them luck. Suddenly, Nami calls out to Kyo and Hina as they head off, encouraging everyone to do their best. With confidence, Hina readies her bow and declares she'll handle anything that appears. They step into the eerie B-rank dungeon known as the Cursed Underground Tomb. Inside, Hina's hands tremble as unsettling noises echo around them. A swarm of bats streaks overhead, startling her even more. Nami checks on her, but Hina insists she's fine, but Kyo asks her where did her confidence go. He explains that the Cursed Underground Tomb is a place where undead monsters gather. Most ghost-type monsters are immune to physical attacks, something he admits he's not good at handling either. Hina is shocked he didn't mention this earlier, pointing out his idea of not good differs from theirs. However, she just laughs it off and says they're just monsters and defeating them ends it. Flustered, Hina still denies being scared while Nami offers to hold her hand if needed. Kyo notes the atmosphere has grown more active. The ground suddenly begins to crack and shift, while shadows emerge as something stirs beneath them. A C-rank goblin zombie bursts out and snarls at the group. Hina prepares to attack as Nami offers her support. Suddenly, a shadowy figure approaches through the mist, catching Hina's attention. She freezes in fear as a ghostly face emerges before her. Panicking, Hina stammers out that it has appeared. Kyo steps in and tells them to save their reactions for later. The zombies close in, but Kyo prepares to face them. With a flash, he summons a glowing sword. Its radiant power sweeps through the enemies in a single strike. Flames engulf the battlefield as the monsters are cut down. Recognizing the holy attribute of his weapon, Nami is impressed by his skill. Meanwhile, Hina looks around in shock as she realizes that the ghost is missing. Kyo notes that a crafter's strength comes from choosing the most compatible weapon, but powerful attributes drain a lot of magic. Meanwhile, the goblin's severed head begins to glow ominously. A dark energy swirls within it, while energy gathers into a sinister form. A sinister figure emerges, revealing itself as a C-rank soul devourer. Kyo explains they're at a disadvantage against monsters without a physical form. Panicking, Hina insists he can handle it, but he admits it's beyond his control. Raising her staff, Nami begins to unleash a radiant light. The radiant light strikes the soul devourers, forcing them back. A powerful surge bursts forth, overwhelming the enemies. With a final wave of light, she completes her soul heal. Amazed, Hina exclaims at the sight of a healer defeating a monster. She explains that Soul Heal channels a powerful healing spell into the souls of the undead. The excess healing then transforms into increased magic power for the recipient. Smiling brightly, she says it's a skill she learned thanks to Kiyo. Impressed, Hina praises her as a revolutionary healer and notes her exceptional magic boost. Watching from afar, Kiyo realizes Nami has grown far more than expected, and they might be able to take on their target. Kiyo turns his attention forward, finding themselves surrounded as the number of enemies gets overwhelming. Realizing the danger, he urges everyone to run and lose them. When asked if he knows where he's going, but he follows his instincts since he's been here before. Suddenly, they reach a towering wall. Realizing the path ahead is gone despite his certainty it was there before. He admits things must have changed and tells them they'll have to fight. The group braces themselves as they face a horde far too large for comfort. Suddenly, Nami hears the faint sound of singing. The eerie melody echoes as shadowy figures and monsters draw closer. Suddenly, Hina recognizes the figure and exclaims that she's the one she saw before. Before them stands the Death King. Kiyo silently notes his shock after encountering it here, knowing little is recorded about it. Warning them that even an S-rank adventurer could fall to it, he urges them to cover their ears. Yet Nami looks around in confusion and notes that nothing seems to be happening. The undead suddenly collapse under the influence of the haunting song. The Death King's voice continues to echo, sending waves of power through the air. A dark force sweeps toward them, impossible to evade. They're struck by the energy as shock flashes across their faces. In an instant, the group is hurled backward while engulfed in the ominous light. The group crashes to the ground, realizing they're phasing through the walls. Confused, Kiyo wonders what kind of ability this is and demands to know what she plans to do. The Death King extends her hand, glowing with ominous power. A glowing force pulls them forward, and they realize they're passing through the wall. They tumble out the other side and land hard on the ground. Groaning in pain, they take in their surroundings, finding themselves in a mysterious chamber that appears to be hidden. Suddenly, Hina's terrified scream echoes as the Death King passes through the wall. His glowing figure radiates, while weapons are drawn in caution as the group prepares for any sudden move. Yet the Death King shows no signs of hostility as he stands still before them. He silently raises a hand, as if making a request, asking Nami if she can lend him her power. She stares in shock and questions why he wants her power. The Death King suddenly utters the words "Soul Liberation." A strange lantern materializes and glows with an eerie light, until a shadowy silhouette begins to emerge. They realize the figure is the Soul Captor, which is the dungeon's boss, and something is attempting to free it. Kiyo explains that Soul Liberation captures the souls of the dead and uses their magic power. The captured souls become resources and grant immense strength to the boss. For some reason, it now seeks to sever its magic power source. This can be done through Nami's Soul Heal skill, converting the souls of the dead into powerful healing energy. He confidently states his guess and addresses the Death King, giving a slight nod in response. Hina questions about how he knows so much, but he avoids answering. They stand before the Death King as the tension in the room deepens. The figure raises a glowing hand toward the wall, causing it to crack and crumble. The crumbling wall reveals a large opening created by the Death King, implying that the boss is just ahead. They proceed down a dim corridor. Emerging into a vast chamber, they spot the ominous figure waiting. At the far end, the boss sits on a throne while surrounded by eerie and floating lights. The Soul Captor's glowing eye opens, revealing itself as an A-rank monster. Its power surges and forces the others to brace themselves. Kiyo reassures them that as long as they follow the plan, they'll be fine and gives the order to move. Nami grips her weapon tightly and focuses her magic in preparation. The Soul Captor grips its lantern, followed by a wave of power bursts outward and fills the chamber with a violent glow. The blast expands rapidly, threatening to engulf them. They're shocked at the sheer size of its attack range. With the attack closing in, they question if they can even dodge in time. They brace for impact, only for a sudden shield of light to envelop them. The Death King stands before them and casts a protective barrier called Soul Curtain. Surprised, they question if it's actually helping them. The Death King remains silent, while the Soul Captor grips its lantern tightly as power builds once more. The Death King pushes forward and strikes with a burst of energy. The Soul Captor retaliates as it releases another wave of dark magic. They reveal that the lantern is the source of its endless power that allows it to attack without limit. While the Death King holds the enemy at bay, Nami finishes her chant and thanks them for waiting. She charges forward, unleashing Soul Heal with a brilliant green light bursting forth. The magic strikes the Soul Captor, weakening its grasp on the lantern. The display leaves the others in awe of her power. Hina draws her bow and feels like she will not lose. She unleashes Fire Arrow, the blazing projectile streaking toward the enemy. The Soul Captor grips on its lantern, summoning a barrier of Soul Curtain, but it struggles to hold back the blast until it begins to crack. The soul captor reels from the impact as flames surge around it. Hina acknowledges the attack's strength and credits both the surplus magic power and her bow. Determined, she declares they can push through and releases another blazing shot. The soul captor chants greedily and calls for all the souls to be his. The soul captor whips out a chain, ensnaring Hina's leg and yanking her off balance. She's violently slammed into the ground and pulled toward the enemy. The soul captor seizes her by the head, causing her to scream in agony as the energy engulfs her. Nami calls out desperately and reaches toward her in alarm. Suddenly, someone cuts in with a sharp reminder not to forget about him. Kyo's strike lands and forces the soul captor to release its grip. He notes that the move is possible thanks to the surplus magic power. With a confident smile, he prepares to demonstrate a fully manifested crafted magic. The soul captor screams as its body burns under a holy light. Flames engulf its arm, while the holy power spreads and consumes its form. Kyo notes its strength surpasses his expectations, prompting him to charge forward to strike and conquer. A beam of energy suddenly erupts from the monster's head, while souls surround its body, which shocks Kyo. Light engulfs its severed arm as dark energy surges, making Kyo realize the monster has fully regenerated. A glowing sphere of energy hurtles toward him, as the monster unleashes a barrage of blazing projectiles. It spreads its arms wide and releases an overwhelming wave of destruction. The blast rained down and forced the others to shield themselves. Dark clouds swirl as the sky fills with ominous energy. The soul captor stands amidst the swirling energy as its power radiates outward. It bursts into maniacal laughter, dismissing its opponent's efforts as futile. However, Kyo calmly declares that the attacks haven't even scratched him, shocking the soul captor. The monster reaches out as a radiant light forms before it, but Nami's golden staff shines, releasing a healing command. Her angelic figure descends while Kyo notes that her presence is the soul captor's natural enemy. A blinding strike is unleashed as Kyo cuts through its form, beheading the monster. Kyo smiles in relief as the group celebrates their victory. While the monster's body crumbles into fragments of light, but his lantern remains. Kyo drives his sword down toward it, unleashing a blinding light into the surroundings. Streams of light rise as all the captured souls are released, while the Death King holds a glowing sphere, her gaze calm and focused. Kyo stands before the radiant light and watches the scene unfold. Suddenly, a soul trapped in the artifact begins to take form, causing the Death King to descend gracefully and reach out to the freed spirit with joy. He embraces the freed soul with gentle warmth, prompting Kyo's shock reaction. Light envelops him as he clasps his hands over his chest. With a serene smile, he thanks them. His form dissolves into light, ascending as they watch. The group wonders aloud what kind of demon it truly was, while Nami chuckles softly, reflecting that it's the first time a demon has ever thanked him. They agree and decide to head home together. The next day at the adventurer's office, Alice congratulates them for clearing the dungeon and warmly welcomes them back. Alice officially welcomes them as members of Carnelian Rage, causing them to cheer in excitement. They decide to celebrate once Kyo arrives. Reporters suddenly gather and confirm their affiliation with Carnelian Rage. People praise their feat of clearing the cursed underground tomb, noting their rise in fame alongside the revolutionary healer. The girls look pressured from the questions, while the reporters wonder how such a feat was possible for a C-class adventurer. Kyo suddenly arrives and notices the commotion and asks what's going on. Alice explains that reporters came after hearing of his success. Kyo is pointed out as the dungeon clearer, triggering whispers spreading among the crowd as they learn he's the classless adventurer. They surround Hina and praise the teamwork it must have taken. Kyo feels it's a difficult situation for her to handle, until his phone rings, which he answers instantly. His expression tenses at what he hears, prompting Alice to notice his reaction and asks what's wrong. His phone slips from his hand, while Kyo bolts out of the building. She watches in concern, while Kyo panics as he calls out Natsu's name. He races toward the hospital with urgency driving his every step. Medical staff check Natsu's vitals, and note her heartbeat is dangerously low. Kyo suddenly sees flashbacks when he was helpless, until he arrives at the hospital while screaming his sister's name. A doctor stops him and tells him to wait outside, but he pleads to be let in. He insists that his sister's life is in danger, but the door is slammed shut in his face. He collapses onto a bench, holding his head in his hands, and thinks about how her symptoms have worsened so much. He wonders why the alchemist has not arrived yet, until footsteps approach. A man in a suit and sunglasses addresses him and calls his name. The man hands him a phone, realizing it's his. It suddenly starts ringing, while the man urges him to answer the call. He hesitates shortly, until he answers the call and hears someone mention his sister's condition, while Kyo tries to confirm if he is speaking to Alice. A loud noise interrupts and prompts him to ask what they mean. The suited man gestures silently, causing him to move toward the window. A helicopter lands on the hospital rooftop as he recalls deciding to help his friend however he could. Alice walks out with a medical team, holding a Carnelian's Rage pendant that now belongs to Kyo. The medical team enters Natsu's room, which confuses the doctors. Alice's team suddenly states that they will take over from here. Two doctors protest against letting the newcomers handle the patient until they realize they are magical medics. It is explained that they are a medical organization that rose to prominence after Mana appeared, using knowledge and magic to cure diseases once thought impossible. The doctors admit the newcomers are far more suited for this case and entrust Natsu to their care. They identify her illness as Mana Vortex, which is already at stage 3, and discuss starting a mana draining operation. The doctors wonder why such renowned people have suddenly appeared. Meanwhile, Alice reassures him they can trust her to their care. He stays silent as tension is visible on his face. They sit together in the hallway as footsteps approach. The magic medics finally come out and tell him they've managed to stabilize her condition. He quietly thanks them, but the magic medics explain that Alice was the one who summoned them, and that he should thank her instead. Alice tells him not to worry, and says it's simply her style. Kiyo remarks on her nature and she agrees. She pats his shoulder and adds there's more she wants to say. She tells him she couldn't leave him alone, rendering him speechless. Alice teases him for showing such an expression, but he admits he's grateful, while she responds with a warm smile. Kiyo watches silently from a distance, until he asks Alice if she could lend him her power a bit more. Wanting to save Natsu, he pleads with her. Alice is surprised, but says it's an honor for him to rely on her and asks what he needs from her. Kiyo silently reflects that her sincerity is genuine and decides he can trust her even if it means revealing his secrets soon. He tells her he knows how to treat the Mana Vortex. However, they'll need a skill from the alchemist job, and he asks if she knows anyone who can help. She admits she's never heard of such a job before. Realizing the job hasn't been discovered yet, he concludes he must go to the elf's world. He states that the skill from that job is the key, explaining that a mana stone called Moon Magic Stone, created by someone with that job, is the only cure for Mana Vortex. She recognizes the Moon Magic Stone and is surprised that it has another use. He asks if she doubts his words, but she says she knows he's a man with secrets. She assures him he doesn't have to reveal everything to her. Alice declares she won't abandon her friends, telling him to listen closely. She's seen someone change the structure of mana stones before. Though unsure if it's the skill he needs, she insists it's worth checking. He urgently agrees and she warns him to be prepared. Alice reveals with a knowing smile that the person they're talking about is quite a big shot. A sleek car speeds down the road, driving a gentleman with a bob cut. It arrives at Tokyo Central University Hospital and pulls smoothly into the driveway. Dr. Tara steps out of the car, then a group of reporters rush toward him. They ask if he developed another new medicine, and he replies it wasn't that hard. The reporters praise his skill and ask his secret while he answers with a confident smile that it's simply talent. Walking away, he tells them to make an appointment next time as security holds the crowd back. He adjusts his coat in the hallway and thinks this talent is a gift from God. An assistant informs him that his rewards for developing new medicines are on the table. Sitting back in his chair, he calls it a tree of money before eagerly unsealing the envelope. Tara pulls out stacks of bills and brings one close to his face. With a deep sniff, he savors the scent and murmurs that this is pure happiness. Lying back with the bills, he declares his talent is like alchemy. Answering a call from his father, he's told someone wishes to meet him today. His father says he doesn't know, but that the person seems to hold high authority. Shocked, he demands clarification and his father explains it's urgent for him and the hospital. Reluctantly agreeing, he's told the person's data will be sent before the call ends. He wonders who could pressure his father, a politician, to such an extent. He receives the data and sees it's for Kiyo, who is a C-rank adventurer. Disappointed, he thinks the person is just an ordinary adventurer. Later, Tara is informed that the guest has arrived. With a smirk, he says to let them in. Kiyo enters and thanks him for his time. Tara greets him and notes there must be urgent matters to discuss. He asks for the conversation to be kept short and Kiyo agrees. He says he is looking for an alchemist, and he was told that Tara had that power and introduced them. Kiyo says it's fine if Tara doesn't understand, but that would end their talk, which prompts Tara to realize the reason for his visit. Tara admits he doesn't know what connections Kiyo used, but says the person who referred him knows too much. Kiyo realizes his guess is correct and begins to confirm Tara's identity. The latter reveals he was once a doctor but is now an A-class adventurer with the job of alchemist. Kiyo thinks to himself he has finally found him. When Tara asks what he wants, Kiyo says he needs help making a certain medicine. Tara agrees but immediately asks how much Kiyo will pay. He boasts his talent isn't cheap and questions if Kiyo knows how much authority he has in pharmacy, but he bluntly replies that he doesn't. Shocked, Tara reacts when Kiyo says he only heard he was a doctor. Kiyo apologizes and says he can't pay much, but offers valuable information in exchange. Tara questions the value of information and insists Kiyo isn't in a position to negotiate. Thinking he can threaten him, Tara activates his power and orders him to leave. Energy surges which distracts Kiyo, prompting Tara to take the opportunity and attack him. However, Kiyo simply blocks his kick with his arm, shocking Tara. Swinging his arm, Tara is sent flying. The alchemist crashes to the floor, Wondering what kind of power Kyo used, surrounded by scattered bills, Tara demands to know if Kyo is really a C-class. Shaken, he watches as Kyo calmly asks for his help and states he needs his skills. Tara refuses to help someone who can't pay him, while Kyo notes that Tara clearly loves money. Tara admits he does. Grinning, he says money is everything in the world and heavier than life itself. Kyo smirks, realizing this is his leverage. He tells Tara that if he follows his instructions, he could make a fortune. Tara pauses from his offer, while Kyo claims to have the power to predict the future and clarifies that he only speaks of events he has personally experienced. With a calm smile, he suggests that cooperating with him would lead to making a fortune. Tara scoffs at the idea and dismisses it as nonsense and refuses to believe him. Thinking it's normal to be doubted, Kyo recalls Alice promising to help and notes how she always moves at her own pace. Kyo grips his phone tightly, determined not to back down. He promises to prove his prediction since the alchemist is doubting. Tara smirks and asks if it's going to be a weather forecast. Instead, Kyo shows a photo of a man and predicts that in the near future, this person will cause a traffic accident and be caught for a hit and run. He adds that before fleeing, the man will strike the victim again with his car and receive a heavy punishment. Shocked, Tara insists it's impossible and claims to know the man and denies such behavior. Kyo proposes a bet and slides over a piece of paper. He explains that if events unfold exactly as predicted, the man should contact him. With a smirk, he adds that if money is what he wants, he'll be waiting. Stepping through a portal, he leaves, while Tara watches and scoffs quietly. Scoffing, Tara calls him a crazy man and dismissively crumples the paper and throws it in the trash. The next day, news reports that the former congressman has been found guilty on suspicion of a hit and run. It states that after striking the victim with his car, he ran away and hit them again. Hearing the report, Tara freezes in shock. Kyo's phone rings and he answers with a calm remark that he's been waiting. Shouting over the line, Tara exclaims that the prediction came true and demands to know what he did. With a smirk, he replies that he did nothing and only saw the future. Kyo instructs Tara to come to a location he names and says he'll be waiting where money is produced. A car drives toward the meeting place. Tara steps out in surprise, finding himself at a dungeon's waste disposal site while surrounded by piles of discarded materials. Kyo approaches, while Tara shouts in frustration as he demands to know what this has to do with making money and calls it a mountain of trash. Kyo explains that this is where dungeon waste is discarded, with adventurers often bringing their drops here, and sometimes items are expelled directly from a gate. Kyo explains that the discarded items are special and cannot be processed with current technology, so they are simply thrown away. However, he predicts that in 3 years, a technology will be developed to turn these materials into biofuel. With Tara's abilities, this could be achieved within a year. He concludes that with such an advantage, the business could be monopolized entirely. Smiling darkly, Tara thinks to himself that he won't be fooled. He accuses the other of wanting to use his talent for personal gain. Dismissing the idea as nonsense, he unleashes his power. Blue lightning bursts forth and tears apart the pile of trash. Kyo looks on in shock as the ability Decomposition Reconstruction activate. Tara forms a massive golem and screams that he's being mocked. With rage, he vows not to forgive him and sends the golem's fist crashing down. The blow slams into the ground, forcing Kyo to leap back. Realizing his opponent is the real alchemist, he begins crafting. A glowing sword of Azoth materializes in his hand. With a swift slash, he shatters the golem's arm. Debris rains down as the blow forces Tara's back. Looking around in shock, the alchemist wonders where he went. Spotting him, he realizes he's also a creator. However, the swordsman notes his crafting ability works only for swords, unleashing a volley of them. The volley of swords hurtles toward him, forcing Tara to slam his hands to the ground and activate recombination. Massive earthen walls rise up in front of him, while the swords crash against the barrier with tremendous force. The impact cracks the surface, but the walls hold for now. The swords break through the wall, shattering it to pieces. One blade stops inches from Tara's face, making him flinch in terror. It hovers threateningly above him as he sits on the ground. Kyo lowers his weapon and assures him that he isn't being deceived. Kyo tells him he wants cooperation, clarifying that it won't be for free and offers an equivalent exchange. Admitting that money is the most important thing in the world, Tara listens intently, declaring that he must have it even if it's just a single yen. Tara smiles maniacally, making Kyo stay silent for a moment. Tara stands and accepts, saying he will make the requested medicine. Tara calmly says he is willing to help. He takes out his handkerchief to clean himself up. He brushes the dirt off and says he can remain composed even when tainted by trash. Observing closely, he considers Kyo's future reading power, but admits it's still unclear. Tara notes about Kiyo's skill that he's never seen before, with an ability to suppress even an A rank like him. He admits Kiyo's worth is above average and says his potential caught his attention. Looking at the heaps of trash, Tara questions if they can really be turned into biofuel, which Kiyo confirms. Tara reviews the costs and notes that profits depend on the liters produced. The thought of monopolizing production before the technology is complete makes him curious. Tara says if it's true, the project could become something huge. Tara makes it clear he's claiming the venture for himself, while Kiyo admits he lacks both the technology and funds but values the knowledge. Hearing this, Tara agrees and notes that with such foresight, he could easily start his own business. He remarks he will even create medicine for him, wondering what he has already foreseen. With a smile, he asks to witness it and shakes hands before parting ways. Privately, Kiyo feels all the pieces are falling into place and urges Natsu to wait just a little longer. The next day, at Tokyo Central University's General Research Building, Tara welcomes his visitors to personal laboratory. Alice and Kiyo enter. While Tara expresses it's an honor to have Alice, and she returns the sentiment. She explains she obtained his contact through her connection. Kiyo presents the ingredients for the medicine. Surprised, Tara recognizes them as moon magic stones, which is the first time he is seeing them. Holding one, he senses strong magic within and notes its beauty. He's told the stones are unawakened and must be activated using his alchemist ability, prompting him to give it a try despite finding the explanation vague. Tara asks about the stone's unawakened effects, revealing it to be for medicine that treats mana shock. Surprised, Tara reacts to the rarity of such a cure and notes that none has existed until now. He warns that he won't assist if it's for psychotherapy nonsense, but Kiyo assures him it's the truth. The magic within the stones can neutralize the mana blockage caused by mana shock. This means the disease can finally be treated. With conviction, Kiyo insists he is not wrong and asks to be trusted. Hearing this, Tara becomes visibly excited, realizing that Kiyo is actually a hidden treasure. He sends a message before asking what property should be altered. Told to change the property to heat, he places the stone in position. Acknowledging the instruction, he prepares to begin. With electricity sparking around him, he claps his hands together. Focused, he starts channeling his power into the stone. Energy swirls around him as he channels heat into the stone. The air ripples with power, forcing the onlookers to shiver. They watch with curiosity, wondering how it will turn out. Despite the intense heat, the stone remains unchanged. He decides to condense the energy to raise its thermal efficiency. The stone suddenly reacts, prompting Tara to announce the reaction has shifted. Realizing its outer shell is dispersing heat, he focuses on radiating its core. The crystal glows brighter as the transformation progresses. Satisfied, he says he can now see clearly and begins rearranging it with precision. With a final adjustment, he declares the process complete. The crystal bursts apart, releasing radiant fragments. From the remnants, a perfect glowing sphere emerges. He raises it high and confirms the task is done. Handing it over, he asks if the result is satisfactory, which leaves Kiyo surprised. Holding the glowing sphere, he confirms it's perfect with no issues at all. He recalls that normally, creating this medicine would take years. He recalls the time he grieved before Natsu's memorial while he vows that she can finally be cured. Overcome with gratitude, he clasps Tara's hand and thanks him for making it possible to save his little sister. Alice notes how much his sister means to him, noting that she is proud to have witnessed a historic moment. However, if she warns that the achievement must be handled cautiously as it could cause a global uproar, Kiyo agrees and prefers to avoid a public announcement if possible. Tara protests and insists now is the perfect time to reveal it since the medicine targets a disease threatening humanity. Tara reminds him that his sister isn't the only one suffering and people across Japan and the world need the medicine. Alice notes that Kiyo has the power to foresee the future, but chooses to keep it hidden. Tara narrows his eyes in thought until his men burst in and inform that there are suddenly a lot of people outside, shocking Alice and Kiyo. Tara smiles and offers to stand before them in his place. The crowd swarms forward, calling out for Tara and asking if he has truly found the cure for mana fever. Inside, Alice demands an explanation from Tara, who explains that it's exactly as Kiyo promised. Smiling, Tara reveals he was offered a way to make a large sum of money, which Kiyo confirms. However, he states he has no time to entertain the media and needs to focus on curing his sister instead, begging that they keep his and Natsu's identity a secret. Alice nods in understanding, while Tara smiles warmly, assuring that everything about them will remain secret and that he will handle the media. With arms wide open, he steps into the spotlight and greets the media. Surrounded by reporters, Tara corrects them and says the proper term is mana shock. A reporter remarks that while others search for a cure, the Kanzaki group found it first, but Tara asks them not to phrase it that way and claims it is a shared goal for humanity. The reporter apologizes to the press for his bluntness. Internally, he smirks and feels satisfied that he has outsmarted the Magic Medic organization. Tara grins and thinks he can already smell the money, until a reporter asks what treatment he developed. Caught off guard, he hesitates before responding. Realizing he forgot to ask for certain details, he explains that the key lies in magic stones. He adds that there are still many uncertainties, so he can't share specifics yet, but promises to reveal everything once it's complete. As cameras flash endlessly, someone wonders if this arrangement is truly fine. Alice tells Kyo that he made the discovery and deserves the fame. He replies that he doesn't want such things and is fine with the other man taking all the credit. Looking out with determination, he thinks of his only wish, envisioning his sister joyfully running in the sunlight. The next day at the hospital, news reports that patient numbers are still rising and the Kanzaki group announces a new treatment for mana shock. Tara acts as the company representative and is credited for a major contribution to its development. Kyo quietly watches the news until Alice and Nami arrive. Tara suddenly appears and greets them cheerfully. Kyo asks why he's there when he's supposed to be on TV, but Tara explains the broadcast isn't live and the press conference was held earlier. He opens a case and reveals altered magic stones he came to deliver, impressing Nami with their beauty. Tara agrees to begin the treatment and asks Kyo to explain the procedure. Kyo tells Tara that his role is finished and leaves the doctor surprised. He hands the task over to Nami and explains the need for a magic user. Nami agrees enthusiastically, while Kyo smiles and says he's counting on her. Tara protests, while Alice teases him that he must be around because he doesn't know how to use the magic stones. Tara laughs off the accusation and insists he is only here for the sake of the people and the world. Kyo sits beside Natsu and acknowledges her pain. He holds her hand gently and assures her that everything will be fine because he's there. Looking into her eyes, he asks if she's ready. Opening the case of magic stones, Kyo calls out her name. Kyo places a magic stone in her hand and assures her that he is there. He declares his intent to save her. The stones rise into the air and form a glowing circle above them. They shoot beams of light toward her and envelop her body. Natsu trembles as the dark energy inside her begins to react. Kyo urges Nami to begin once the blockages are cleared, which will make Natsu's condition improve. Nami channels her power and casts healing magic over Natsu. Natsu's breathing steadies as the treatment continues. Kyo strains to maintain the magic and note how much mana he's consuming and recalling that this is why he became strong. Realizing his level still might not be enough, he curses as exhaustion begins to overtake him. Alice suddenly steps in beside him as Kyo starts to struggle. She tells him they can't fail here and offers her help. He gratefully thanks her as their combined power fuels the magic stones. The light intensifies, flooding the room with golden energy. Nami notices the glow growing stronger and leaves Tara stunned. A magic stone cracks under the intense energy, followed by shards of golden light scattering as they shield themselves. The fragments drift gently over Natsu, while Tara hesitantly asks if they succeeded and Kyo says it should have been enough. Natsu opens her eyes slightly and softly calls out to her big brother. Kyo rushes to her side, asking if she's okay and how she feels. She says she feels better. Smiling softly, she tells him the pain is gone. Kyo embraces Natsu tightly, relieved to see her safe. Overcome with emotion, he tells her he's glad. Tara explains that by channeling mana into the stones above the patient, the treatment becomes possible. Alice grabs them and decides to step outside to discuss details so they can give the siblings some privacy. Kyo stays by Natsu's side, holding her close in the quiet room. The newly developed drug from the Kanzaki group has greatly improved treatment for mana shock and reduces casualties. However, mana shock remains a serious issue and the situation still calls for caution. To mass-produce the drug, the Kanzaki group seeks cooperation from adventurers with the Moon Magic Stone as its key ingredient. While jogging, Natsu checks her phone and notices an incoming message. She smiles brightly and greets her brother cheerfully. He asks how her body is feeling, and she replies that she feels great, currently out jogging. He shares that he's on the highest mountain on Earth, standing at the summit of Mount Everest. He hears her surprise at how fast he reached it. He confirms he's about to climb down, and she calls him amazing, wondering why he chose such a mountain. With a thoughtful look, he begins to respond. Kyo completes the quest to climb the highest mountain and receives its reward. He explains that a mountain is meant to be conquered and prompts her to call him weird. She says it's fine as long as he's having fun, adding that being able to walk freely is true happiness. She declares her decision to become an adventurer like him, aiming to collect moon magic stones for the sick. Hearing her resolve, he responds quietly. She asks if he will support her, and he agrees as he promises to help her grow stronger. He suggests practicing climbing together once he returns, but she admits she still lacks confidence. A few days later, his plane lands at Narita Airport in Japan. Tired from the long and difficult flight, he feels his stomach growl and realizes he's hungry. He thinks about inviting Natsu for a meal as he walks through the airport. Spotting a woman holding a sign with his name, he looks puzzled. She asks if he is Kiyo, and he confirms. He questions who she is and how she knew he would be at the airport. Ignoring his questions, she says her master is waiting for him. He wonders what happens if he refuses, but she urges him not to say that. She explains that her master wants to show appreciation for his work in developing the monoshock treatment. Confused, he asks what she means. She tells him her master already knows everything and invites him if he's interested. She gestures toward a car with a tray of fresh fruit inside. He asks if it's okay to eat, and she tells him to enjoy himself. The car speeds down the road toward their destination. As he snacks on the fruit, she informs him they will arrive soon. They pull up to a grand building adorned with blue flags. Stepping out, he looks up in surprise at what lies before him. She announces to her master that she has brought Kiyo and earns his praise. A man steps forward and welcomes him. He apologizes for bringing him here by force, revealing himself as S-Class adventurer Kira, who is leader of the Frozen Elite Guild. Kiyo recognizes him immediately, as expected, noting that Kira is on the same level as the powerful Carnelian Rage Guild. As Kira approaches, while Kiyo can already feel his overwhelming pressure and wonders what he wants. Without warning, Kira suddenly rushes in and grabs Kiyo in a tight embrace, shouting with joy. Kiyo is startled as Kira thanks him and calls him his savior. Kira explains that the medicine Kiyo developed saved his wife's life. Kira says he thought it was hopeless for his wife, but Kiyo saved her. Kiyo realizes she was also affected by monoshock and is glad she's recovered. With tears in his eyes, Kira confirms and hands Kiyo a photo. Kiyo sees how different she looks now and is filled with happiness. As Kira thanks him again, Kiyo wonders how he knew it was him despite asking for his identity to be kept secret. Kira excitedly embraces Kiyo, saying no amount of gratitude will ever be enough. Wanting to reward him as much as possible, he invites Kiyo to join Frozen Elite. Kiyo is surprised but politely declines, explaining he's already in another guild. Kira guesses it's Carnelian Rage, but points out they lack something his guild has. He reveals they have a lead on the S-Class dungeon known as Abyss. Kiyo reacts in surprise to the revelation. Kira explains that the path to the dungeon has been closed for years. With a knowing smile, he asks what Kiyo thinks. Extending his hand, he invites Kiyo to join them. Kiyo realizes the offer is to venture into the S-Class dungeon Abyss. The S-Class dungeon known as Abyss normally has its gate closed, making entry impossible. It's an unexplored place that's difficult to conquer, but the seal will break if a certain condition is met. He recalls hearing that the gate would then open, asking if there's really a clue to reach it. Kira confirms and says it's a clue on how to reach the dungeon's core. Despite Carnelian Rage being full of brilliant people, even Alice couldn't achieve it. He confirms that the Abyss remains the hardest unconquerable dungeon to this day. The only ones capable of doing so are the Frozen Elite, prompting Kiyo to ask for proof. Kira reveals they have information on the S-Class monster lurking in the Abyss, which is the Machine Dragon. Shocked, he demands to know where that information came from. Kira is surprised by the mention of the dragon and asks if Kiyo already knew about it. Admitting he only heard about it through rumors, he avoids giving more detail. Even as his savior, Kiyo is told that the matter can't be disclosed. However, if he joins their guild, he'll learn everything. Kiyo silently recalls that the Machine Dragon was the very monster that triggered his regression into the past. After saving Natsu from monoshock, he feels he has no reason to face that monster again. He recalls the people who helped him. With a calm shake of his head, he apologizes. Surprised, Kira asks what he means. He explains it's not about the Machine Dragon, but about a real high-quality dungeon. Kira promises to guide him until they reach that point and urges him to join. Though it's a good offer, Kiyo says he owes Alice a big favor. If possible, he'd like to reach that point together with her. Kira quietly acknowledges his decision. Though disappointed, he accepts it and says it can't be helped. Kira warns that being affiliated with an S-Class guild means someday getting caught in the clash over the Abyss. While he was abroad, many developments occurred in the adventurer's world. Handing him a sealed letter, he tells him to read it. Curious, he opens it and is surprised by its contents, outlining a plan to conquer the Abyss with 5 parties of S-Class adventurers. Kira explains it's a government quest that arrived a few days ago, and Carnelian Rage should receive it as well. The government acted hastily to seize the chance to conquer the Abyss. The higher-ups are likely after the dungeon's valuable treasures. When asked if adventurers are the same, he agrees with a smile. Telling him to prepare himself, he remarks that the die is cast and things are about to get noisy. K-Era declares that the Frozen Elite will be the first to step into the dungeon, but Kiyo is free to follow his own path. Agreeing, he takes his leave. A few days later, Alice sits in a meeting. Before the gathered S-Class guilds, an announcement begins. Among the S-Class adventurers are Goki, leader of the S-Class Guild Honor of the Continent, Mimi of the S-Class Guild Stardale, Jinji of the S-Class Guild Mineweeper, Kira, who represents the S-Class Guild Frozen Elite, and Alice, who leads the S-Class Guild Carnelian Rage. The speaker directs everyone's attention to the matter at hand. They announce that today's discussion concerns the quest sent a few days ago, which is participating in the investigation and raid of the S-Class dungeon, Abyss. The goal is to work together to overcome the dungeon's unknown danger. Jinji laughs at the mention of cooperation, wondering how many will truly support one another. Mimi remarks on his phrasing, but he tells her to look closely and addresses everyone in the room, hiding behind a pleasant expression with their eyes reveal otherwise. Jinji says it's better to work for one's own reputation than help each other. Mimi questions what's wrong with having ambition. Smiling, she says everyone wants the spotlight, but now the government is asking for their cooperation. She admits she dislikes being blamed just for being young, while Jinji points out she's not that young. Mimi is shocked by his words, her aura flaring with anger. She accuses him of spouting nonsense and challenges him directly. Smirking, he admits he'd rather talk to someone much younger. A sharp command interrupts them, demanding they stop. Alice glares across the table and orders them not to waste time and to continue the discussion. Mimi huffs in irritation and returns to her seat while someone mutters about her attitude. Jinji casually requests tea and says he's thirsty after wasting his time. Alice exhales and notes that the relationship between S-Class guilds remains as unfriendly as ever. As the meeting continues, the government's request is presented as a top priority. Alice reflects on being asked to conquer the Abyss, feeling uneasy about it. Meanwhile, the sealed gate begins to open. From within, a dark and grinning presence emerges. The S-rank dungeon. Abyss is revealed as the first primordial dungeon to ever appear in the world. Even the strongest cannot return from its depths, earning it the name Final Dungeon due to its extreme difficulty. Its sealed doors remain a mystery, with rare reports of adventurers finding magical moonstones. Since moonstones are known to cure magical afflictions, their demand has soared. Rediscovering one could bring enough wealth to live in luxury forever. Beyond moonstones, countless rare magic stones capable of changing modern life are buried there in abundance. Mimi yawns mid-meeting, apologizing as someone notes that she must find the topic boring. Jinji smirks and says she looks at him with more interest than anyone else. Her expression darkens as ominous energy swirls around her. Jinji grins and asks if he struck a nerve, until he senses an ominous presence behind him. Alice crackles with power and offers to be the opponent. Her sharp gaze glows as she says it doesn't matter who she faces, while Mimi sits silently as she looks at her. Jinji chuckles and tells her not to glare at him. The man at the head of the table resumes and says they will continue. By sheer luck, the dungeon doors have opened, bringing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He announces that their goal is to conquer the deepest depths of the Abyss, shocking some in the room. Most dungeons have a boss overseeing them. Goki worries about facing a monster powerful enough to be the Abyss's master. The man states they will defeat it for the sake of the investigation despite the danger and uncertainty. He reminds them that failure is not an option, telling anyone unwilling to leave now. A sharp glare meets his words, but Kira reassures the group that every adventurer desires the Abyss's treasures and no one will object. He notes it would be a problem otherwise. Confidential documents are handed out, containing the known information. One man reads about a mechanical dragon, realizing the danger of venturing into the depths against such a foe. Mimi taunts him and suggests he leaves if he's scared. Irritated, Goki accuses her of mocking him and warns against underestimating an S ranker. He slams the table after Mimi tells him to start over from F rank. Chaos erupts after Goki questions if she is accusing him of being weak. She lands lightly after dodging and teasing that he was aware of it all along, while Kira notes it has turned into a game of cat and mouse. Suddenly, Alice and Kira pause for a moment, sensing something approaching, and a shadowy figure rushes toward the building. It crashes in with violent force, sending people flying and exclaiming in shock. Goki is slammed hard into the wall, struggling to rise as debris settles. The monster is revealed to be an A-rank fragment of Kulkan. They question why it's outside the dungeon and suspect it to be the curse of the Abyss. It's said the Abyss itself seeks to crush intruders, leading Kira to wonder if the rumor is true. Another dismisses it as superstition, but the monster suddenly strikes and attempts to grab him. He screams as the monster hurls him through the air, until Kira catches him. The monster advances while Alice checks if her allies are alright. It suddenly roars and leaps toward her, but she prepares herself, until the monster pauses mid-attack. Jinji declares that those who dig up graves out of greed will meet the dangers they deserve. He says it's only natural while encasing the monster in threads and warning it is not to be underestimated. He crushes the monster's body as he tightens his threads. Observers watch in awe, and Mimi suggests that Goki learn from him. Suddenly, the Kulkan's dark presence murmurs with interest. It mutters that it's just a scratch, startling Alice and Kira. Jinji questions what it means as he picks up a glowing orb. He offers to take it, but the man in black insists they'll handle it themselves. Nearby, Kira repeats the words that the Kulkan uttered. Alice asks what he means, and he advises her to remember a few things. He admits to knowing Kiyo and wonders if she should be informed. Alice notes that this may be a chance to get to know Kiyo better. Jinji says they've reached an agreement and takes his leave. Before departing, he tells her not to end up like the mummy catching the mummy and to do their best. Walking through the city, Kiyo checks his phone after he is summoned. He looks up and realizes it's his first time visiting the Carnelian Rage headquarters. Inside, he walks toward the reception area under a grand chandelier. Nearby, a man casually asks the staff if they could have lunch together. Kiyo steps forward and asks to meet Alice, but the man reacts in shock at him calling her by name while the receptionist says she'll confirm it. The man stops him and demands to know his business there, and Kiyo explains that Alice told him to come. The man calls him a guest and suggests using a formal address for Alice. He firmly replies that he's not a guest but a member of the clan. The man points at him, stressing that as a newcomer, he should know the leader of Carnelian Rage is Alice. He warns him not to act overly familiar and advises him to show proper respect and avoid making enemies on his first day. Kiyo thinks to himself that he can't imagine Alice making such a rule, insisting he has his own way of showing respect. The man tells him to heed his seniors, but he dismisses him, saying he barks too much and isn't worth listening to. Elsewhere, Hina, carrying food, pauses in surprise. She greets him casually, surprising the man who realizes they know each other. The receptionist urges her to stop them, while Hina asks if they're fighting. He eyes her food and says it looks tasty, while she remarks that new recruits usually start with training. The man shouts that they're both arrogant and warns that disrespecting Alice is the same as disrespecting Carnelian Rage. The man charges forward and vows to put him in his place. In an instant, he's struck down and sent crashing to the floor. The receptionist watches in shock as Kiyo stands over the man. He asks if the man is satisfied now. Walking away, he says he didn't come to play and is only there because Alice called him. The man is stunned that, despite being A rank, he was defeated so easily and wonders about the other's rank. Hina notes he's leveled up again to C rank. Someone spots Alice approaching and catches Kiyo's attention. Alice arrives and is greeted enthusiastically by the members. She praises everyone for their good work. Alice greets Kiyo and asks if something happened while Hina accuses him of bullying a trainee, which he denies. Alice remarks that many here put her on a pedestal, so she expected he might clash with them. She tells him they have a meeting and to come with her, while Hina chooses to stay behind. As they head upstairs, Alice tells him to behave and he insists he was being quiet. Watching them leave, the man realizes he's new and wonders who he is. He follows Alice down the hallway toward a meeting room. She opens the door and apologizes for the wait. Ren, an S-rank water magician, says they're right on time. He recognizes Kiyo and mentions Alice had told him about him. Ren extends his hand and politely introduces himself to Kiyo. Alice introduces him as the brain of their team. Ren notes he's just as Alice described. He thinks his grip is strong, then starts the meeting. Ren explains that the other key members have already taken action. Alice tells him he'll also be contributing, and before continuing, he offers to give a report. Ren states that Mindweaver, also known as Jinji, is moving to monopolize the abyss. Alice smirks, saying she knew the old man could pull it off. Kugami explains that at the S-rank assembly, a magic stone from the mechanical dragon was left behind. It was used to create a new weapon and strengthen their clan, prompting Kiyo to recognize the mechanical dragon. Alice deduces they're using the weapon to generate funding, and Ren confirms they likely plan to mass produce it. Wondering what exactly happened at the assembly, Kiyo decides to stay quiet. He asks if Carnelian Rage will be going as well, and Ren confirms it. When he asks if he'll be joining, Ren says no and explains they've already sent a party of S-rank members, so there's no need for him to be concerned. Silently, Kiyo is impressed that the clan has enough S-class adventurers to be dispatched, until Ren informs him that he will be operating with a separate unit. Kiyo's face is in shock after seeing the screen, prompting Alice to commend Ren for a flawless strategy. Ren acknowledges that they are dealing with Jinji, so they need to be cautious. Kiyo smiles and gladly gives his commitment to take on the task. A bustling camp gathers near a fenced area. Crowds watch as a glowing portal opens and murmur about how it's usually closed and how long it's been since it last appeared. A voice calls out for people to move aside, drawing surprised reactions as the crowd parts. Kiyo steadies a startled boy and asks if he's okay while he apologizes nervously. Kiyo then approaches the portal as onlookers note his bracelet marks him as C-class. Inside the abyss, Kiyo recalls past visits from his S-class days. He approaches a vine-covered entrance, remembering how he could never go beyond the shallow layers. Stepping inside, he walks deeper into the dim, stone halls. The silence is heavy as he senses something ahead. A dark presence stirs and wonders if the Culkin is really there. Kiyo pushes himself up, knowing there's no time to think, as the condition to clear the abyss's floor is revealed. To advance to the next floor, he must make it within the time limit. Though unsure of the exact countdown, he estimates about 10 minutes remain. The clock ticks as chaos erupts, monsters clashing with other challengers. Among them, he spots a glowing mark, which is the Mindweaver crest. He moves swiftly, preferring not to be seen as this is a stealth mission. Spotting the crowded hall, he wonders if all these adventurers are here to hunt magic stones, and notes it's the liveliest he's ever seen in the abyss. Suddenly, debris crashes down in front of him. A massive mechanical dragon emerges before him. Realizing the danger, he thinks he doesn't have time to deal with this now. The monster is suddenly blasted back by a sudden explosion. Kiyo turns toward the source as another attack lands, revealing them to be Nami and another magician. Kiyo thanks Nami, but she notes that it was their teammate who saved him. Nami notes that she heard from Alice about his situation, and she urges him to head straight ahead. Further down the corridor, she waves him on toward his path, but Kiyo suddenly returns just to warn Nami to be careful of the shadows, rendering her speechless. He recalls that she's part of the Carnelian Rage Task Force, thinking that with an S-class adventurer around, there should be no need to worry. As strange tendrils appear, his eyes widen in alarm. Realizing the enemy has arrived, he notes there's no more room for delay. Kiyo leaps over the barrier, noting it's a one-way escape, and startles a nearby adventurer. As he runs, a dark tendril lunges toward the man, revealing the form of a B-class doppelganger. It's a monster that takes control of an adventurer's shadow and copies their appearance. The doppelganger only mimics appearance, but once it possesses someone, it pursues them until defeated. Even without urgency, it's a troublesome foe, and yet he presses forward. Spotting his destination, he races ahead. The path to the next floor comes into view. However, he turns away, heading toward where his true objective lies. With 49 seconds left, he sprints down the corridor. The timer drops to 27 seconds as he races forward. Reaching a hatch, he sees only 16 seconds remain. Smoke and noise erupt with 8 seconds left. He strikes the panel, triggering the mechanism just in time. He lands hard as the platform descends rapidly. The mechanism lowers him into a hidden chamber. Catching his breath, he mutters in relief. For now, he's fulfilled Ren's orders. The goal is to outsmart Mindweaver, avoid detection by the old family, and retrieve the hidden room's treasure. The requirement to enter the hidden room is to find the route and arrive within the time limit. Acknowledging this, he prepares for the real challenge ahead. Though called a hidden room, it's actually filled with monsters, the first being an A-class Abyss Guardian. Ren's target is this formidable creature. He identifies the Abyss Guardian's core as the target. Activating his craft, he summons a sword. With a powerful slash, he shatters the core's casing. He leaps high into the air. Driving his blade down, he strikes the core with full force. The core shatters into pieces, releasing a burst of light. He retrieves a magic stone, declaring the mission accomplished. Approaching a glowing gate, he notes the task is done, but remains cautious. Even Ren hadn't figured out this trap. The gate opens, revealing a bright passage beyond. More Abyss Guardians appear, and for Alice's sake, he decides to make one more haul. In return, he claims all the experience points for himself. Someone nearby reacts in surprise, while Kiyo's sharp gaze catches the sight of Jinji, who never expected to find such a hidden room. Jinji explains he followed Kiyo with an interesting movement. Kiyo instantly recognizes Jinji as the top of Mindweaver and displays his confusion at how he got there. Kiyo remarks he hadn't noticed being tailed and describes him as a cautious old man. Seeing the surroundings, Jinji comments on his familiarity with the place and asks if he knows more. Kiyo coldly replies that he doesn't know and has nothing to discuss. Jinji notes his distant attitude, reminding him they're both adventurers and asking to share some information. Kiyo suddenly notices the golem attempting to strike, but Kiyo manages to dodge instantly. The massive construct swings its fist down toward Jinji with crushing force. The golem's massive arm stops just short of Jinji's face. It slowly lowers its stance, looming over him without striking. Turns out that the golem is trapped by Jinji's thread, which restricts its movements. The golem suddenly leaps high into the air, drawing Kiyo's attention. It crashes down with immense force, sending debris flying as Kiyo dodges in shock. Jinji admits the situation is troublesome, but says he'll be fine as long as the young man stays alive until he's willing to talk. Sitting cross-legged, he reveals his job as a weaver. Kiyo notices threads forming and suspecting it's Jinji's skill and calling out the threat. Jinji chuckles at the accusation, remarking on entering the room with a young brat to fight monsters, saying accidents like this happen often. Jinji stands poised as the golems surge forward. Kiyo eyes him sharply before drawing his weapon. He charges in, slashing through a golem's attack. Dodging swiftly, he avoids another crushing blow. Jinji smiles, remarking on his surprising nimbleness. Two golems leap toward Kiyo in unison, but he sidesteps as one crashes down beside him. Gripping his weapon tightly, he prepares to strike. With a powerful slash, he cleaves through a golem, splitting it apart. The pieces crash to the ground as dust and debris fill the air. A golem looms over Kiyo, threads visibly controlling its movement. Jinji offers to help if he shares what he knows about Abyss, but Kiyo refuses. Realizing Jinji is controlling the constructs with threads, he prepares his next move. He decides to take down the main body. Jinji swiftly maneuvers his threads, ready to counter. Jinji lunges forward, threads swirling around him as Kiyo braces his sword. The threads wrap toward him, forcing him to push back with strength. Jinji rises into the air, spinning his threads to gain control. Kyo steadies his grip, eyes locked with determination. Kyo then launches his flying sword dance. His blade slices past Jinji. The old man winces but quickly steadies himself. Kyo follows up with fire sword flash strike. Mid-swing, his eyes widen in sudden surprise. Kyo is stunned, while Jinji admits he dislikes how poorly swordsmen match against him. Activating infinite thread, Jinji manipulates countless strands. He warns that the more he moves, the more he becomes trapped in the spider's web. Jinji smirks, saying the outcome was decided from the start. Kyo clicks his tongue, realizing he hadn't noticed. Jinji offers to spare his life if he reveals the hidden rooms or, instead, explains the sword he summoned. He presses further, asking where it came from. Kyo refuses to answer. Jinji notes his disregard for his own life. Smiling, he decides to entertain him until he feels like talking. Threads tighten from his fingertips, binding him further. A notification appears and announces a new quest. It instructs him to defeat the insolent old man, leaving him confused at the wording. Kyo chuckles, prompting Jinji to ask why he's laughing. With a determined look, he says that's something he doesn't need to be told twice. Jinji's eyes widen in shock as the threads around his opponent begin snapping. Kyo breaks free, swords floating around him in a glowing formation. Jinji stares in disbelief and admits he's never seen a skill like this before. Kyo rises to his feet, calm and composed. Jinji is stunned, realizing the overwhelming pressure matches that of Alice. He admits to misjudging Kyo's strength. A sudden impact shakes the ground. Jinji falls silent, processing the situation. Kyo smirks, explaining the room's rule that no one can leave until all monsters are defeated, then adds that he's now shared his part. Jinji calls out to Kyo as the golems prepare to strike. Kyo begins crafting his weapon, until a bright light forms as he forges the blazing sword. With the weapon in hand, he unleashes its fiery power, eyes glowing with determination as he charges straight into the fray. Jinji stares in disbelief, realizing a low-tier adventurer had been hiding such power. Kyo charges forward, his blazing sword cutting through the threads. The strike pierces Jinji's back, prompting the old man to collapse, lamenting his misfortune. A system message declares the quest complete and grants the reward item. Kyo receives the reward, a growth magic stone. Letting out a quiet breath, he collects himself. Looking at the fallen golems, he remarks that there's still unfinished work to be done. Meanwhile, the stage lights flare as the announcer declares tonight's final big act. They introduce the brightest star in the idol world, the one worthy of the first star in the night sky. Mimi bursts onto the stage with her microphone in hand. Fans scream her name, their voices blending into the music as cameras capture every moment. She dances at the center with her backup performers. Afterwards, she sits with the interviewers who express gratitude for her time. They highlight how she balances idol work with other fields, which include being an S-class adventurer and managing her own clan. One interviewer notes she doesn't seem as old as she appears, asking for her secret to youthful energy. She smiles and says what keeps her going are the smiles and cheers from her fans. She adds that what drives her is a competitive spirit that refuses to lose. One interviewer comments on her fighting spirit, making her laugh and admit she was joking but she truly dislikes losing. She then mentions it might also be because of the warm water she drinks every morning, leaving the interviewers unsure if she's serious until the interview time is up. Walking down the hallway, she asks why her assistant kept fidgeting during her interview. She hesitates, then explains that Jinji was defeated. Surprised, she learns it happened on the Abyss's first floor and last, already planning to tease him about it. When told Jinji might retire, she pauses in thought. Her expression darkens as she mutters about that old man. Lightning crackles around her as she shouts, demanding why he's talking nonsense. Her outburst sends a shockwave, toppling a potted plant nearby. Apologizing, she explains it got caught on her skirt and a staff member rushes to fix it. Her assistant warns that causing a scene here will draw attention, but she orders all her plans cancelled as she's leaving. With a cold glare, she tells her to stop whining and fires her on the spot. Mimi leaves the building and steps into a waiting car. As the city lights blur past, she sits quietly in the back seat while lost in thought. Her expression hardens as she stares out the window in silence. A few days earlier, she had been seated in a traditional room for a meal with Jinji, her silence displayed. Jinji studied her with a smirk and asked what she thought. She grabbed her drink while shaking and called it an interesting proposal. With a cold smile, she said they'd use exploration as a cover to eliminate Alice and take the top seat. Jinji agreed and admitted it's a sneaky move but necessary since they couldn't defeat her alone. Mimi took a sip of her drink while still trembling. Lowering his gaze, he asked if she was scared. She smirked and said she was just kidding but admitted everything changed when Alice appeared. In her mind, she recalled how she has always been a thorn in her side. Mimi remembered taking on a quest with her, and the clash of weapons seared into her memory. Alice helped her get up after getting defeated by monsters, triggering her to think of how she clawed her way to the top, only for Alice to effortlessly surpass her. Mimi's grip tightened until the glass in her hand shattered. She admitted it's always been like this, that her rival was always ahead of her. With a dark smile, she vowed to make her suffer. Jinji looked satisfied and predicted that the government would soon request an S-class clan to explore the abyss. She was told that when the time comes, Alice's end will arrive. Jinji left and instructed her not to tell anyone else. Seething, she blames him for starting all of this. Elsewhere, the headquarters of Mindweeper stands under the night sky. Jinji sits outside and calmly plays a game with his companion. Shouts ring out to stop her as she charges forward. Mimi bursts into the room and strikes Jinji mid-game. The board flips, but Jinji holds it with his thread. Standing tall, Mimi demands to know if he's retiring. She agrees to hear him out once and asks him to explain his injuries. He responds that it was an accident and admits there's no way he can continue further. With a calm smile, he says he's stepping down. Mimi's power flares as she warns him not to think he can take his words back now. Even if he can't move properly, she expects him to take responsibility for his mistake. Jinji smirks and says killing Alice alone isn't enough. He asks if she's heard of Kyo. She recalls hearing his name during an assembly meeting and demands to know what he means. He describes him as a C-class boy who knows the ins and outs of the abyss, revealing that he easily found the hidden room and used an unknown job. Jinji reflects on always focusing on those in higher positions while overlooking the rising talents below. Mimi is shocked to learn Kyo is a C-class, asking if he was beaten by someone ranked so low. He smiles faintly without denying it. She powers up and expresses her disappointment. In her mind, a figurehead would have been a far better choice. Mimi coldly calls him useless before unleashing a massive explosion. Flames engulf the property, drawing shocked cries from onlookers. Thinking to herself, she decides she should have handled it from the start, with the vacant S-class spot making it perfect, making her determined to take Alice down with her own hands. But first, she reaches for her phone. Mimi calls her manager, instructing her to gather all available information on Kyo. When met with hesitation, she insists and says the nail that stands out must be hammered down. Meanwhile, a sinister presence stirs in the darkness. At the Carmelian Rage headquarters, construction work is underway. Kyo approaches and asks about the unusual project, learning it's an expansion ordered by Alice. A tool slips from a worker's hand, plummeting toward the ground. He spots the danger and shouts for them to watch out. In an instant, he pulls the man out of harm's way as the tool strikes the floor. The guy checks his friend if he is alright and warns him to be more careful. Inside, Kyo explains he was called by Alice and learns she's in the meeting room where Kyo awaits. He walks down the hall and opens the door. Announcing his arrival, he's greeted by Alice, who bursts with celebration and congratulates him for being the round's MVP. Alice tells him the magic stone he brought back earned a large sum, allowing them to repair and expand the headquarters. She hands him a reward and advises him to use it wisely. Over a meal, Ren praises him as an exceptionally talented rookie. They agree to use the funds to expand the team, upgrade equipment, and gather more allies to grow stronger. With a sharp smile, Alice declares their next goal, which is to delve into the deepest parts of the mysterious abyss. He thinks of the abyss and the Culkin, believing that facing it again could reveal what happened to him in the past. Determined, he resolves to confront it once more and settle the score. Alice asks if he plans to keep diving, and he confirms while saying they'll use the gathered intel to plan their next operation. Hearing this, she expresses that she has something to contribute as well. Alice encourages her to share, noting his remarkable skills for a first-timer. Kyo reveals he once fought a mechanical dragon. Recalling the battle, he admits he was alone and only managed to land a single blow. Surprised, they question how a C rank could solo a monster of at least B rank, laughing at the thought. Though skeptical, they can't dismiss it entirely, with Alice remarking on how interesting he is. He insists everything he said is true, clarifying it wasn't about the creatures on the abyss's first level. It was something much larger, which was an S-rank mechanical dragon called Culkin. Hearing the name, they react in awe, with Alice remarking on how extraordinary he is. When asked what kind of monster it is, he admits he only knows so much. That night, the headquarters stands under the stars as Alice thanks Kyo for the valuable information. Alice tells him she owes him a lot, but he brushes it off and says it's fine. Smiling, she admits she still doesn't know much about him and asks him to share more another time. As Kyo walks away, she calls out and reminds him their date is still on. Later that night, he walks alone under the streetlights as it's gotten a bit late. He gets his phone to update Natsu that he is almost home. Suddenly, a voice greets him chillingly. Mimi holds a parasol and asks if he's coming from school or work. Kyo notices something lurking in the shadows beneath her. Smirking, he tells her she's not hiding her killing intent well, and demands to know who she is. Mimi steps onto a glowing magic circle and mocks him for not knowing who she is, but saying it doesn't matter. Her eyes glow red as she declares he's going to die here. A monstrous creature emerges from the magic, charging toward him. He swiftly dodges the attack. Realizing what he's up against, he identifies it as a spirit summoner's job. He notes it's one of the rare jobs and asks why she's targeting him. Calling him by name, she remarks on his rapid rise in rank. With a cold tone, she tells him he's in the way. Her summoned beast lunges forward with a roar. Kyo narrows his eyes and activates his skill. He slashes through the summoned beast with a powerful strike. Mimi stands steadily until she dodges Kyo's strike. She floats in the air and asks what he's fighting with and calls her beast Diabolos. The beast looms beside Kyo as she says it's time to get this done. The beast lunges with its jaws wide open. Kyo reacts quickly, but the attack engulfs him. Caught in its grasp, he's stunned by the sudden move. The creature swallows him whole. Watching from above, she smirks and remarks how easily he was dealt with. She declares that while he may be able to take down the island, he'll never reach the stars. Inside, Kyo groans as he plummets through a crimson void. Opening his eyes, he wonders where he is. A prompt reveals he's in Haro, which is the Diablo's womb and a completely isolated, sealed space. Kyo realizes it's some kind of sealing skill. With nothing solid to strike, he wonders if escaping by force is impossible. Having never broken out of a seal before, he admits the situation is bad and questions what to do. Then, something catches his attention. A confident smirk forms on his face as he prepares his next move. She likens the space to an endless abyss where once inside, you fall forever with no escape. Mocking Kyo, she calls someone foolish for losing to something like this and praises Diabolos. Smirking, she says only Alice is left. Suddenly, her eyes widen in surprise. She turns to see Diabolos, muttering in disbelief that Kyo is gone. Mimi grips her umbrella tightly, furious that it happened without her orders. She clenches her fist, insisting Kyo should never be able to escape. Facing a shadowy figure, she stumbles back, questioning why this is happening. Elsewhere, Kyo watches as a stream of blue light rises into the sky. He looks around and realizes he has successfully escaped. Holding up a key, he decides it's time to use the special dungeon reward, surprised he'd end up using it this way. He recalls advice from a senior assassin during his first run. In that memory, the assassin mentioned there was a trick to breaking seals. The assassin smirked and explained that seals must be countered with one of your own. The assassin explained that if trapped in an isolated space, one can break free by placing a seal on themselves to move to another space. He paused in thought, twirling a knife in his hand. Walking toward a target, he urged that knowledge like this could be useful anytime. Kyo smirks and admits the assassin was right and thanking him despite his reluctance. He arrives at the entrance of a special dungeon, a trial-based space where participants are sent. Kyo reflects that stronger coercion exists beyond simple sealing skills, which helped him escape before, but now he can't leave until the trial ends. A system message welcomes him to the special dungeon called Altha's Underground Prison. The challenge is issued and he needs to defeat all enemies, revealing that they are called Gekazar, which is an A-rank monster. Kyo finds himself surrounded by many of them. Muttering that trouble has come again, the Gekazar launches a glowing attack, forcing him to react quickly. Purple projectiles rain down as he leaps back to evade. The blast spreads across the ground and he realizes it's too dangerous to take head-on. Several monsters are struck by the aftermath of the attack. He grits his teeth, conjuring energy in his hand and cursing under his breath. He unleashes a lightning sword attack, slicing through the monsters in a burst of energy. One creature's tentacle wraps around the weapon, oozing with purple slime. He pulls back with a grimace, finding it uncomfortably sticky. The weapon struggles against the grip of the slimy appendage. With a flick, the sword is freed, whirling through the air toward another monster. He faces off with the monster as his lightning sword clatters to the ground. The creature grins menacingly, its eyes locked on him. Kyo notes that its intelligence is surprisingly high for its level. He suddenly summons his weapon back, shocking the monster. He slices through the monster, his body collapsing to the ground. More enemies close in as he charges forward with his lightning sword. A larger creature pushes through, but he launches a powerful kick, sending one flying. Another rushes at him, but he swiftly dodges to the side. Kyo sprints forward, weaving through the attacking monsters. A barrage of purple slime shoots toward him, splattering on impact. One strike catches him, slamming his back against the wall. Surrounded by enemies, he finds himself cornered. Clicking his tongue, he smirks faintly as a surge of energy begins to gather in his hand. Blue orbs rain down as he charges forward, shouting in defiance. He cuts through the horde, leaving defeated monsters scattered across the ground. Wounded and covered in slime, he braces himself while gripping his sword. Panting heavily, he stands surrounded by fallen enemies. A towering monster looms over him, ready to strike. He drives his sword through the monster's head, ending the fight. Collapsing to the ground, he breathes heavily from exhaustion. Leaning back, he lets out a long sigh of relief. A system message declares his success in defeating all enemies and grants rewards. As energy surrounds him, he assumes the reward must be experience points. A system message announces his level up, and he notes his strength has increased. Feeling his wounds and fatigue vanish, he remarks how helpful the recovery is. As the dungeon begins to close, he acknowledges it was a detour but says the real challenge starts now. Light engulfs him as he's transported out. Elsewhere, someone shouts in anger, cursing him. Mimi slams her hand down in frustration, demanding to know how he escaped. Gritting her teeth, she vows to find and kill him no matter where he goes. Spotting a sudden glow, she looks up in surprise. She realizes it's a teleport gate as his figure begins to appear. Kyo steps out calmly, bathed in blue light. She freezes in shock upon seeing him, stammering as she demands to know where he came from. Her expression twists in disbelief at his appearance, questioning his filthy outfit. Covering her nose, she complains about the stench, prompting him to apologize. He meets her gaze and calmly says he's come back from hell. Narrowing her eyes, she accuses him of using a teleport skill or item. She notes that he's even leveled up since their last encounter. Mounted on a monstrous beast, she vows to make him regret surviving earlier. Summoning a massive magic circle, she calls his persistence annoying. He responds with determination, declaring he'll keep coming back no matter how many times she tries to stop him. Mimi rides her Diablos beneath a glowing magic circle. It is revealed that a spirit summoner is a hidden job unlocked by summoning 10,000 monsters. Each spirit holds immense power and unwavering loyalty to its master, though the summoner's heart remains key. That heart can shift between good and evil, making the role perilous. He swiftly draws his executioner's sword, preparing for action. She remarks on his refined taste with a sly smile, but she warns that luck is not on his side as her power surges. With a shout, she unleashes spirit summoning. A figure lands heavily, cracking the stone beneath him. Flames erupt around Kyo as he descends with his sword ready. A massive worm queen emerges in a blaze, prompting a tense reaction from Kyo, who is being swallowed by the monster. The worm's towering form looms over the city under the night sky. Laughing, Mimi declares he will be the one executed. A sudden crack forms along her scales as a strike lands. The beast roars in pain as its body explodes. Mimi looks on in shock as the attack lands. Drenched in the monster's fluid, Kyo pushes forward through the sticky mess. She notes his strikes cannot pierce her tough shell and begins gathering power. Dark wings flare as she ascends, radiating blinding energy. A glowing sphere of magic hurtles down toward Kyo, but he unleashes a relentless magic barrage. He braces himself and grips his sword tightly. Energy swirls in his hands as he prepares to counter. The two forces collide in a massive, blinding explosion. Fluid rains down over the city, startling onlookers who realize it's a clash between adventurers. A massive, twisting mass of flesh and energy swirls in the chaos. Mimi praises her monster with a sinister smile. Trapped within the beast, he struggles to stay conscious as she taunts him. Surrounded by monstrous spirits, she declares they would gladly give their lives for her without hesitation. She orders her minions to tear him apart. Monstrous spirits charge toward him with feral intent. He steadies his stance, ready to face them head-on. A deafening roar echoes as the beasts close in. The clash shakes the air as purple energy swirls violently around them. Onlookers watch in shock, recognizing the brutal display as Mimi's doing and noting spirits are no different from monsters. Perched above the city, she vows no one will take what's hers. She smiles, calling to her beloved spirits as the time comes. From above, she commands them to bring her the man's head. A severed beast's head is presented, impaled on his sword. She reels back in shock at the sudden turn of events. Surrounded by slain beasts, he taunts her about running out of spirits. He grips his sword, noting it's not just for show. With each drop of fluid it absorbs, the blade grows sharper and stronger. Horrified, she cries out in despair for her fallen spirits. Fury twists her expression as she screams in outrage. He takes her hand, stating he has no interest in her stage. With his sword ready, he refuses to tolerate being targeted without cause. She demands silence, dismissing his conviction entirely. Raising her hands, she vows to kill anyone who dares outshine her. She declares he can only watch helplessly from below through bitter tears. A brilliant light erupts as she performs spirit summoning, calling forth the asterisk night of stars. The towering figure descends, radiating celestial power. He steadies his gaze, determined and unwavering. In his heart, he resolves that as long as he has the power, he will save Natsu. He steels himself, declaring he won't lose. With a powerful leap, he charges straight at the towering figure. A devastating strike shatters its form into fragments of light. The blow pierces through her, leaving her shocked and wounded. As she reaches out in disbelief, she whispers that it can't be possible. She falls as her fluid trails through the air and insists she can't lose. Memories surface of jealousy of Alice. The jeers of her peers echo, mocking her and calling her names. She recalls sitting alone in a messy room, isolated and dejected. A voice reaches her, telling her she's not alone. She remembers moments of loneliness and fleeting happiness from her past as her spirits accompany her. Light gathers in a radiant glow, until Mimi collapses atop her fallen beast with both lying motionless on the ground. Lying mortally wounded atop her beast, she wonders what was missing and calls her Diablos. Her body lies still in the street beside her fallen spirits. Kyo turns away with his sword in his hand. Spectators watch in awe, remarking on the intensity of a high-rank battle. He admits it was meant as a small act of revenge, though he might have gone too far. A few years ago, a kendo match began as the referee signaled the start. One fighter scoffed and viewed the bout as trivial. With a swift stomp, the opponent's weapon was knocked away. He was thrown to the ground, crying out in shock. The referee declared the match over. The referee signaled victory as the opponent remained on the floor. Alice was declared the winner, revealing herself in a flashback at 12 years old. She loved training her body, and soon no adult could defeat her. Feeling confident, she began to take pride in her abilities. She thought that someday she would lead this place. She assumed she would take over her father's company and enter society to work. Stepping out of the car, she spots a familiar figure ahead. Calling out to her father, she ran toward him and announced she was home. A sudden blast strikes, shocking them both. A monstrous strike pierced her father before her eyes. His lifeless body collapsed, triggering her to scream in anguish. At first, she only wanted to avenge his regret. In the end, she cursed her own powerlessness. But eventually, she found companions and grew to love adventure. It became her world. Now, standing before a glowing portal, she prepares to depart. Her ally informs her that preparations are complete and they can leave anytime, and she thanks them. Meanwhile, Alice greets Kyo playfully and notes how dashing he's become with a band-aid on his face, but he brushes it off. Another adventurer questions if she's really bringing a C rank, and she confirms since he's actually strong. She explains he's the only one who can read her sword strikes. Her words leave him momentarily surprised. Despite her confidence, the skeptic remains unconvinced. She agrees it's true and says she'd like to spar with him someday, and he quietly agrees. He notes that no one else can follow her sword movements, impressed by her terrifying speed. She calls for everyone to gather so they can head out. He reflects that he never imagined standing alongside an S-rank guild of this level. Then something important suddenly comes to his mind. In the first timeline 20 years from now, Alice, leader of Carnelian Rage, died attempting to clear the abyss, and the guild was annihilated. He considers that it may not happen today, but wonders if he should let her go without saying anything. She notices his gaze and asks if something's on her face, and the other adventurer denies it. The team enters a towering dungeon structure. Alice charges ahead with determination as the group follows. Growls echo as monstrous creatures appear before them. The beasts roar in charge, prompting the team to engage. Alice leads the attack, striking down the enemy. They clear the first level within the time limit without any issues. The route is executed perfectly, passing the second level and reaching the middle layers quickly, just as expected. After a brief rest, Alice praises the team and says they can proceed on foot. She grows alert after a short break. Suddenly, she orders everyone to fall back. A dark figure crashes down before them with immense force. An S-rank monster, the Abyss Knight, emerges from the shadows. The group is stunned to see what appears to be a dungeon boss-level monster. She notes it's not even a boss for this floor, but in the Abyss, it's not surprising. The monster's eye glows as it prepares to strike. Alice meets its attack head-on, just as expected. Her allies are shocked when it blocks her sword with overwhelming strength. Alice unleashes a flurry of powerful strikes against the Abyss Knight. The monster counters fiercely, forcing her onto the defensive. Kyo steps in, his blade glowing as he intercepts the attack. They stand side by side, pushing the enemy back. She thanks him but insists she's fine and tells him to step back. He tells her she should conserve her energy as the leader. He steps forward, declaring he'll handle it. Both raise their blades together in unison. They launch a joint assault against the Abyss Knight. She locks weapons with the monster, holding it at bay. They clash against the Abyss Knight, their combined strength drawing awe from the onlookers. Others question how a new C rank can keep up with Alice and such a monster, suspecting he's hiding his true rank. Alice admits he's better than she expected, but suggests it's not fair for her to stay back, asking to take over. He refuses to back down, pushing forward with determination. He notes how unusual it is for a monster of this level to appear in the shallow layers. They realize this is the true nature of the Abyss. Together, they strike at the Abyss Knight with full force. The impact sends shockwaves through the ground. The creature emerges from the rubble. Its body radiates a fierce, ominous energy as it prepares to attack again. He senses a powerful threat approaching and warns that something dangerous is coming. The armored figure lunges forward, while surrounded by a surge of purple energy. A thick and ominous mist begins to spread from its position. Realizing the danger, Alice warns everyone to stay away from the mist. The enemy slashes through the air, forcing her to react sharply. A burst of purple light explodes outward with intense force. The group calls out in alarm as they see her in danger. The enemy stands ready, as its blade radiating purple energy. She charges forward, but the knight blocks her blow, sparks flashing between their weapons. Her attack sends the enemy's sword flying high into the air. The knight's broken weapon clatters to the ground. It growls in frustration and prepares itself once more. He watches in awe, admitting her speed was too fast to follow. He recognizes this as the true power of Alice, the pinnacle of S-rank adventurers. Surrounded by flames, she stands poised. She remarks on the state she's been driven to. The knight approaches, its blade surrounded by swirling purple mist. Dark vapors coil through the air as it moves to strike again. She readies her stance, declaring the same trick won't work twice. The mist closes in as the two prepare for their next clash. She narrows her eyes as multiple shadowy figures emerge from the mist. Seeing the danger, Kyo rushes toward the fight. One of the knights swings down, forcing him into immediate action. He blocks the attack with effort, cursing under his breath. Her shock displays after Kyo intervenes. A powerful shockwave erupts as the enemies close in. The group cries out in fear, while Kyo refuses to believe it could end here. He shouts her name, the battlefield glowing with violent energy. Surrounded by multiple knights, she moves with deadly precision. Her strike pierces through an enemy's helmet. She drives her blade toward the knight, forcing it to stagger back. It grips her weapon tightly and tries to push it away. The armored foe strains against her, both locked in a tense struggle. A roar erupts from the knight as she keeps her focus. Her eyes snap open, burning with determination. Her strike sends the enemy's weapon flying into the air. She delivers a decisive blow, cutting deep into its armor. The others cheer as the remaining knights dissolve into shadows. A fading voice calls out to her with its final words. She turns in surprise as a lingering presence mutters one last phrase. The shadowy figure's last words vow to protect. A surge of purple energy bursts upward, shaking the ground. The shockwave forces the group to shield themselves. Dark mist begins to dissipate, leaving an ominous stillness. Its final warning declares that the calamity of the abyss is beginning. He repeats the ominous word in thought as she asks him to report it to the administration. Confirming everyone is uninjured, he orders the group to proceed as planned. He asks her about the calamity of the abyss, noting even she seems unsure. She explains it's something that was only discovered recently. They stand in silence, gazing at the cracked ground left behind. Alice tells the group to move and promises to explain on the way. A figure wreathed in golden light suddenly appears in the shadows. She explains that many monsters in the abyss are believed to be souls of the dead from another world. He questions if such a thing is possible and Alice admits it's uncertain. What is known is that the dead with strong regrets or emotions merge with the abyss's magic, becoming powerful monsters that attack humans. When these monsters are defeated, the unresolved grudges of the dead erupt. The energy spreads through dungeon gates, making other monsters more ferocious. This phenomenon, called the calamity or curse of the abyss, is also linked to the overflow phenomenon. He realizes that overflow was connected to this all along. Recalling his first timeline, he suspects the chaos he faced back then was part of the calamity of the abyss. A blast strikes a monster, sending it crashing down. It cries out in confusion, questioning where it is. Another figure rides in purple mist, stammering in fear. Kia recalls his shock at hearing monsters speak, realizing the calamity was the cause. She adds that many other unexplained phenomena have been observed, far too many to detail. Noticing Alice stumble, he asks what's wrong. She insists it's nothing, but he tells her she should rest. Suddenly, she collapses forward, and he catches her in alarm. Holding her in his arms, he shouts in shock and demands to know what's happening. He realizes the calamity of the abyss isn't limited to visible threats. Golden light swirls around them, revealing a mysterious figure. A radiant woman steps forward, her presence commanding attention. He notes she's unlike any monster he's seen before and demands to know her identity. She dismisses his question, smirking as she predicts the people nearby will die soon. She claims the others will become sustenance for the abyss, shocking him. The woman tells him to leave the abyss if he wants to save them, warning he can only carry one person out. He realizes she's the cause of this and admits he can't save everyone at once. Knowing they'll all be wiped out if this continues, he wonders what he should do. A glowing projectile shoots downward with incredible speed. Her eyes widen as the projectile strikes with a burst of light. She smirks, remarking that another fool unafraid of the calamity has arrived. A lone figure approaches through the darkness, carrying a long weapon. Kira appears and declares that Alice Takagi cannot conquer the abyss, shocking Kyo by his sudden appearance. Kira summons a radiating magic, which is a concentrated power with exceptional purity. The dark elf smirks and calls it an extravagant spell. Kira responds that it is an honor to be praised by a dark elf. He explains that dark elves are magical life forms ruling the mid-layers of the abyss, excelling in magic and skilled in mental attacks. No matter one's skill, without resistance it's impossible to get through. The dark elf notes his preparation but doubts he'd need petty tricks. He smirks, declaring it's because he's perfect. The dark elf agrees to let them pass, but warns not to take it lightly. She cautions that the deeper layers hold denser flames of calamity. He tells Kyo they'll be moving ahead. They proceed forward, unwilling to waste time. He advises taking Alice back and declares the abyss belongs to those who can defeat the frozen elite. Watching the others move ahead, Kyo considers that taking Alice back might be the best choice. He realizes losing S-rank strength would severely weaken their combatability. Without it, challenging the abyss would be nearly impossible. Gripping his sword, he refuses to turn back. He vows to cut down the source of the threat and move forward with everyone, determined to repay his debt. Alice is still on the ground, while the dark elf approaches and remarks on his expression and warning to choose companions wisely. She says she looks forward to seeing how he'll fall from here. With a snap of her fingers, purple portals open and enemies emerge. He braces himself, realizing reinforcements have arrived. Dark energy swirls as she tells him to surrender to his own darkness. He charges forward through the barrage of attacks. A powerful enemy's fist hurtles toward him. He meets the strike with his sword in a fierce clash. The impact explodes with force, sending out a burst of energy. Kyo swings his sword against the enemy's glowing strike. Noticing its incredible skin hardness, he braces himself. Dark elves raise cursed weapons, channeling sinister energy. He spots another foe approaching and reacts in surprise. A blast of power knocks one back as he curses in frustration. A burst of dark energy erupts, engulfing him in its force. He cries out in pain as a blow slams into his face. He's struck again and his body flung back. The dark elf watches, remarking that despite his bravado, he's surprisingly fragile. A blade pierces through the enemy's head from behind. He stands wounded but firm, though his vision begins to blur. The dark elf observes, remarking he's not bad at all. She calls upon the abyss to reveal its magnificent power. He senses the force around him and realizes what it is. Flashes of memories of Natsu appear before his eyes. He clutches his head in pain as the calamity of the abyss, element of oblivion, takes hold. The visions twist into torment, making him scream in agony. He yells for it to stop, overwhelmed by the assault. The dark elf smiles, calling his expression perfect. She warns that if he hesitates, his precious memories will vanish. In a sudden strike, swords pierce through her allies. She turns in shock to see them fall. He stands with swords of light forming around him. The blades descend, aiming straight at her. She leaps aside as blades of light rain down. Dark flames surge toward him, and he realizes he can't dodge. A beam of blue energy crashes down, shielding him. The attack passes harmlessly as she stares in shock. Her expression twists into manic laughter, calling it the absolute worst. Purple energy engulfs him as he lunges forward. The dark elf is shocked by his persistence, until he is knocked violently to the ground. She admits he has surprised her. With a smirk, she says he's still just a prisoner of her mental attack. His head throbs as fragmented thoughts swirl in his mind. He wonders when he acquired his current equipment. A voice calls out, demanding to know how long he plans to sleep. He jolts awake, pushing himself up with a groan. Lifting his head, he sees someone before him. Suddenly, his old party mocks him and calls him a useless assassin. He sits in shock as they insult his worth as an S rank. They laugh, saying assassin jobs are outdated. Kyo wonders why they're here, then recalls he's in the middle of a dungeon run, falling into despair as he returns to his past as the weakest assassin. Under the night sky, the fortress walls stand silent. A beastly figure lets out a furious roar, while Kyo raises his weapon and activates a skill. In an instant, he uses Shadow Step to close the distance. The creature growls as a surge of dark energy bursts from his grip. A blade strikes down, piercing the monster's armor. He strains against the monster's grip and finds its strength overwhelming. The creature slams him into the ground with a roar. Gritting his teeth, he curses under his breath. A calm voice interrupts, asking who told him to fight as the beast lies motionless. The mage tells him to stop wasting effort and reminds him he's only a decoy. Sitting on the ground, he hears her call him pathetic and useless. He questions himself, wondering why he thought he could fight. Even with his poor stats, he had still reached for more. Holding a locket with Natsu's photo, he reflects on being an assassin and laments that he couldn't save her. A memory surfaces of him saying they might soon cure Natsu's illness. Startled, he snaps out of his thoughts. Holding the locket, he senses an unshakable feeling of unease. A teammate calls him to hurry, and he reluctantly agrees. They descend the stairs together, one remarking that the abyss isn't such a big deal after all. They boast that reaching the deepest level will be easy. One questions if a calamity is supposed to appear, but nothing unusual has shown up. The mage suddenly gasps in surprise. She notices an eerie opening in the cave wall. The group spots a coffin, remarking on its creepiness and deciding to investigate further. They find a coffin labeled as part of the Abyss Mid-Layers in the Temple of Darkness. When asked if this place was documented, the answer is no, suggesting it might be newly discovered. The mage points out how suspicious the coffin is and orders Kyo to open it. Inside lies a wrapped mummy. She refuses to touch it, complaining about the smell, while noticing it's holding something glowing. She identifies it as a magic stone she's never seen before. Using an appraisal skill, she determines it's a quest stone. Asked for the description, she reads that it's a trial bestowed upon those chosen as dungeon guardians. They question the meaning, but no one knows, as that's all the stone reveals. He quietly senses something unusual about the magic within it. Kyo notes that the stone's magic feels familiar, but can't recall where he's encountered it before. The others say it's his reward, joking it should at least be worth some pocket money. He kneels down and picks it up. As he examines it, the stone suddenly glows. A bright, purple light bursts forth, leaving him startled. The glowing message instructs him to use assassin skills to defeat the floor boss, noting hidden conditions are present. His teammates notice his expression, but he brushes it off. He wonders if he's the only one who can see the message. Realizing the task is directed at him, he panics, knowing he's already struggling with the monsters here. A strange sense of familiarity washes over him, certain this isn't the first time he's seen something like this. Kyo feels like he's on the verge of recalling something important. They wonder if the earlier mention of a guardian is connected to the large door ahead, but no one knows. Deciding to force it open, one of them steps forward to try. He quickly runs in, telling them to wait. The man turns, annoyed, calling him an assassin and saying he's in the way. Kyo realizes the object in his hand isn't just a stone. Stepping forward, he uses it to open the massive door. The others praise him, calling him a useful decoy despite being an assassin. They marvel at the sight beyond, wondering if abyss treasure lies inside. A glowing light addresses him directly, declaring him the one chosen as guardian. A knightly figure warns them to leave immediately if they value their lives. Kyo notes the armor looks familiar while the others scoff at the man's attitude. Realizing it's a boss room, they assume defeating him will yield great rewards. Seeing only one opponent, they charge in confidently. In an instant, red energy lashes out, striking them without warning. One of them screams as his arm is cut off. The mage shouts in shock as their teammate falls. The knight calmly strikes down another with deadly precision. Two lie on the ground while the last stands frozen in disbelief. In the next instant, the knight leaps forward, his attack shattering the leader's defense. Their blades clash in a burst of red energy. The knight overpowers him, sending his sword flying. The leader crashes to the ground, unable to recover, gasping for air. He looks up in horror as the knight looms over him. His eyes widened in terror, desperately crying out in denial. The leader looks at Kyo, realizing the opponent is far too strong, and admits that even with help, victory is impossible. His locket slips from his neck and hits the ground. The sight of it triggers a warm memory. He recalls Natsu calling out to him. His sister tells him in memory that it doesn't hurt anymore, shocking Kyo. The knight raises his sword at the leader, noting that their lives will be sacrificed for the sake of his princess. A sword strikes through the air, revealing that Kyo blocks the knight's attack. Locking blades with the knight, he refuses to back down. Thinking of Natsu, he reminds himself he's not the weakest. With determination blazing in his eyes, he declares he will defeat his opponent. A burst of energy erupts as Kyo slashes through the knight. The enemy dashes backward, while his shock displays. Approaching his leader on the ground, Kyo asks if he is alright, but the leader stammers in shock and rejects the concern. Suddenly, a surge of dark power engulfs the leader, which shocks him. Kyo's dead teammates lie on the floor, until a system prompt confirms entry into a quest, granting a temporary skill called Shadow Fusion. He wonders if this is a technique to control others' shadows, noting it's an assassin skill he hasn't encountered before. With a smirk, he remarks that things are getting interesting. He manipulates his dead teammates to attack the knight. His eyes glow red as he grips his weapon tightly, preparing to strike. Dark energy bursts forth, wrapping around an enemy and dragging them into its grasp. The knight struggles as the shadow constricts around their head. He warns that taking your eyes off an assassin is a grave mistake. With lethal intent, Kyo raises his weapon high, ready to bring it down on his foe. He drives his blade into his opponent, the impact glowing with intense light. Swinging again, he delivers another fierce strike. Landing in a crouch, he admits the wound was shallow and realizes he still lacks power. Suddenly, Kyo is in shock as he braces himself from a strike. Clashing swords with the knight, he pushes forward with force. Dark power surges through his strikes, yet he finds himself being pushed back. The leader shouts that an assassin's attack power could never prevail. A powerful slash is unleashed, its glowing arc cutting through the air toward the enemy. Locked in a clash, Kyo realizes the situation is turning against him. His eyes widen as he repeats to himself that this is bad. He swings down in desperation, but the enemy's blade pierces his side mid-attack. A burst of shadow explodes between them, surprising the knight by Kyo's trick. He turns around, seeing Kyo standing behind him. The leader realizes that Kyo has swapped places with the shadow behind his enemy. Calling it Shadow Fusion, Kyo notes how useful the skill is. Knowing he can't win with raw strength, he calls out his next move and summons his clones. Multiple shadow clones emerge in the form of his fallen teammates and surround his enemy. He declares that the weak have their own way of fighting as the clones rush forward. A glowing slash cuts through the battlefield, striking one opponent. The clones move in unison, landing blows from different angles. Two leap high into the air, descending toward their target with lethal precision. The knight blocks incoming strikes, while Kiyo realizes he can't pierce the armor, so he decides to aim for the opponent's head instead. The knight's eyes sharpen with determination as he locks onto his target, until a surge of energy bursts from him. Kiyo suddenly freezes in shock as he is unable to move. His opponent charges, sword enveloped in surging purple energy. The knight counters with a spinning slash and unleashes a wave that sweeps through the enemies. Several are struck and sent flying from the impact. Landing hard on the ground, he lies motionless, his strength fading. Kiyo's hand falls limp as his body begins to dissipate into shadows. The knight alerts himself as countless shadow figures disappear. Shocked, the leader realizes everything around is made of shadows. From above, Kiyo descends with a glowing blade aimed at him. Sensing danger too late, the knight's eyes widened in alarm. The blade pierces through his head as he takes a direct hit. Breathing heavily, he pulls his blade from the fallen opponent. With a faint smile, the enemy calls him impressive and says they will meet again someday. Their voice fades, promising to wait for him another time. Exhausted, Kiyo sits against the wall, trying to catch his breath. From a distance, the leader watches in silence with confusion. Kiyo catches his breath and reflects that he's no longer the same person he once was. Because someone is waiting for him, he decides he will no longer run away. The leader softly calls out his name, his voice filled with hesitation. He admits to himself that he has always envied him, until Kiyo's hands suddenly dematerialize. He is suddenly pulled upward, returning to the abyss where he battled with the dark elf. A heel slams down onto him with crushing force. The dark elf remarks that in this state, he's no different from a helpless baby. She lifts her blade, declaring that he will be joining the ranks as well. She welcomes him to the abyss, but before she can strike, Kiyo's blade pierces through her and severs her head. Kiyo steps forward, while the dark elf stares up in shock, unable to comprehend what just happened. He thanks her for helping him overcome his past, vowing never to be bound by it again. He notes that shadow fusion still works even after waking up. Looking at Alice, he wonders if he managed to bring back the item. Calling her name, he urges Alice to get a hold of herself. Her name echoes in her mind, while Alice is in her kid form lies peacefully in a field of flowers. Opening her eyes, Alice spots a small horned puppy with a red gem on its neck sitting before her. She kneels with a bright smile, embracing the puppy as it licks her cheek. From afar, something observes them, until a large hawk dives toward them. The puppy's red gem glints, followed by the puppy leaping and biting the hawk. Amazed, Alice cheers and realizes the puppy is special too. She hugs it tightly and smiles with joy. Her dad calls Alice and tells her it's time to go home. She runs through the field holding the puppy, calling for her dad. From a balcony, the butler wonders if keeping something so mysterious is really okay as he pertains to the puppy. Alice and the puppy play happily as they decide it's too late to take it away, believing it might fill the void left by her mother. They agree to continue investigating the creature while allowing her to keep it. Looking at a framed photo of Alice's parents, memories stir as a baby's cries echo. A voice urges someone to stay, announcing the birth of a girl. Alice's mom asks for Alice to be cared for, believing she'll be happy. Alice's dad reassures that Alice will be fine and strong just like her mother. Alice proudly shows her achievements, recalling moments of determination and training. Alice plays joyfully with the puppy until a few years earlier, dungeons were known and adventurers and monsters didn't exist. Alice feels a wave of nostalgia. Sitting by a river, she wonders why that feeling came to her. A sudden noise overhead makes her look up as birds scatter. Her fiancé holds a duck and boasts about his skill. Her dog, Shiro, growls fiercely and startles him. She tells Shiro to stop, while the man comments on his unpopularity. She turns away, and he remarks that he knows what she's thinking. He notes that family arrangements can feel restrictive. Smiling, he says he's sure they'll make it work. Pointing across the water, he shows her a deer hidden in the bushes. He offers her the chance to shoot it. She takes the rifle, aiming through the scope. The deer flees toward the forest as he laughs, asking if it was difficult. Shiro roars and charges across the water. He disappears into the bushes in pursuit. Moments later, he drags back a large bear which stains its fur. The man is left stunned as she wades through the water with a grin. She smiles, thinking the only ones who truly understand her are Shiro and her father. In a somber tone, she calls out their names. She recalls how much she loved them both. Shiro stands alert, sensing something. A sudden strike hits Shiro in the chest, radiating light. A red energy sphere bursts forward, followed by a gruesome scene where Alice's dad dies. Shiro's chest glows as he savagely attacks and devours nearby people. She stands frozen, horror in her eyes. Her gaze sharpens as she begs Shiro to stop. Men shout to kill the dog, claiming its glowing jewel summoned a monster. Alice sits silently as voices accuse the dog of causing the boss's death. The room empties, leaving her standing alone. Outside, she approaches Shiro, now chained to the ground. Shiro whimpers as her shadow looms with a sword in hand. She grips the dagger tightly, eyes filled with sorrow. Shiro whimpers as she insists she isn't doing this out of hate. Tears stream down as she raises the blade, apologizing. Kneeling before a grave, she cries after delivering the final blow. Through sobs, she repeats her apologies, overwhelmed with grief. Dark energy seeps from the grave as she whispers another apology. A blast of light erupts, shattering the ground around her. A swirling purple vortex forms, pulling everything in. She is submerged in a vision of scarlet fluid flooding a building. Shiro's head appears within the crimson pool, blaming her. A vision of Shiro and her mom accuse her, saying it's all her fault. A blade sinks into the red liquid as her hand reaches for it. Grasping the weapon, she admits the blame is hers. She resolves to end everything. Pressing the blade to her neck, she vows to stop it before someone else dies. Her thoughts echo about preventing another death. She sinks in crimson waters as a voice calls her name. Another voice urges her to wake up, confused by who is calling her. The call for her name grows louder. She gasps and opens her eyes, startled back to reality. Kyo holds Alice and is relieved she's awake. He says her mind would have broken if he arrived any later, leaving her an empty shell. Helping her sit up, he asks if she's okay, and she says it felt like being trapped in a nightmare. He agrees the place is awful and tells her he's glad she's safe. Alice looks at him, still processing everything. She smiles softly, thinking he's the only one who stubbornly stays by her side. He admits he's fallen behind but trusts she can keep moving. She agrees, claiming she's the strongest after all. They face each other as he asks if they should go, ready to descend to the depths of the abyss. Descending the stairs, they feel relieved that everyone is safe. The group regathers as one of them admitting they thought they were going to die. They urge the team to catch up with Kira, who advanced ahead quickly. With determination, she declares they won't lose in conquering the unexplored dungeon. They continue deeper as light bursts ahead on the path. They emerge into a bright street, looking around in confusion. She wonders if this is the abyss depths as they walk together. Realizing the others are missing, they suspect they've been separated and note the dense magic energy in the air. She concludes everyone has been scattered, realizing they've been outmaneuvered. Sensing strong energy from a distant castle, they decide to head there. Alice decides they should keep moving, trusting the others will notice if they arrive. The streets bustle with life as they make their way through the town. Amazed by the sight within a dungeon, he wonders if it's a world thriving like the land of the elves. They walk past towering guards when a cheerful girl approaches. A man rushes up, urgently addressing the princess. The princess is helped up as armored knights stand nearby. Alice recognizes one knight's armor as identical to the monster they fought earlier, certain of the connection. They notice a familiar man appearing repeatedly. He wonders if the man is deeply connected to the abyss. A sudden attack strikes and he shouts for her to watch out. He rushes forward, grabbing the princess to pull her away, but his hand passes through her body. A sudden strike pierces her side. The soldiers go berserk, attacking indiscriminately. The knight calls out in shock, questioning why the city's guardians are doing this. Amid the chaos, Kia realizes they can't be touched as people flee in panic. Alice wonders if this is reality or a projection of the past. He suspects it's the latter, realizing they can't interfere with what's happening. The knight is struck down and wounded in his chest. Barely able to speak, he reaches out toward her. His voice fades as he calls her name in his final moments. A giant mechanical soldier's strike slams down toward Alice. She turns in surprise as the weapon descends. Thinking it's only an illusion, she assumes it can't harm her. He shouts for Alice to dodge, warning her it's real. The blow crashes into the ground, narrowly missing her. Alice lands from her dodge, eyes widening in realization. Thanking him, she understands now, surprised there was a real one among the illusions. They observe the mechanical soldiers as she repeats her surprise at the discovery. He tells her to leave it to him, claiming it's his specialty. Smiling, she remarks that he's just as mysterious as the abyss. A new quest appears, tasking them to suppress the rampaging mechanical soldiers. Kyo assures it's fine, reaching for his weapon. Facing the charging soldiers, he rushes forward. He leaps to meet the attack head-on. Drawing his blade, energy surges along its edge. Kyo swings his glowing blade down at the mechanical soldier. The strike lands cleanly, disabling it. Watching him fight, she admits it gives her chills and wonders how to tell the enemies apart. As a group of people suddenly rush toward her, she shouts for them to wait. Alice struggles to fend off the rushing crowd, finding it hard to deal with. He tells her it's simple and tells her to just look at their shadows. He strikes with precision, lightning sparking from his weapon. He reflects on honing his shadow-watching skill as an assassin, now proving invaluable. One soldier falls while others, glowing with energy, advance toward them. The soldiers crackle with dark energy as their forms shift. They morph into monstrous, beast-like shapes. She shouts in alarm, realizing they've transformed. He suspects it's the work of Kulkin. One of the transformed creatures lunges, forcing him to block the fierce attack. An explosion erupts, scattering debris across the area. She calls out to Kyo as the dust settles over a fallen figure. A voice checks if he's alright. Spotting the real target, he uses shadow fusion to strike. He realizes this opponent is the commander. Kyo summons multiple swords using craft, sending them flying toward the enemy. The commander is struck repeatedly by the barrage. Blades pierce through its armor, leaving it reeling. An explosion follows, and he admits he wasn't a good match. She stands amid the settling dust, expressing she's glad he was with her. With the quest completed, they receive an escape magic stone as a reward. He notes it's another rare find. The city burns fiercely, flames consuming the buildings. Reaching out, he realizes he can't feel the heat. She laments the loss of such a beautiful city, frustrated they can't stop it. But he reminds her it's only a phantom of the past and nothing can be done. They stand before the burning city, agreeing to move forward.